Good evening, and welcome to the Council Advisory Committee CAC meeting of May 13th, 2024. We have no ASL interpreters attending our meeting this evening, and the meeting is being live streamed on the Town of Kentville YouTube channel, and the most up-to-date meeting package is on the Town of Kentville website. This meeting is called to order. Have all of the councillors received and reviewed their meeting package? Does any member of council have information pertaining to a matter before this council which has not been publicly circulated? As the CAC, we will vote as a committee to either send business forward to the council meeting for ratification, return to staff for further information, or review or defeat the recommendation. Members of council should be mindful of our decision-making wheel to make balanced and respectful decisions while adhering to our code of conduct. The council will be voting electronically on all motions except administrative, which will be by show of hands. Are there any conflict of interest issues we should be aware of this evening before we start? The chair notes that we have quorum and no regrets. So we have been provided with a proposed agenda. CAO, do you have any changes for our agenda?
Yes, you do. Yes, I do, Your Worship. In the in-camera session, we had two late items come in. So I'd like to move 10B land to 10D, and as 10B, it will now be a legal issue as well. 10C will be legal. And as well, as discussed, council has been provided with an RFD, which is currently on the agenda under new business 8A. Administration was requested to have Recreation present tonight to speak to CAC about the programming changes. I had suggested that the RFD be moved to item 54C to ensure that staff, 5C4, to ensure that staff are available for the discussion.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, CAO. Are there any further additions or deletions to the agenda? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And for the second, Councillor Zabian, thank you. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you very much. You have been provided with the minutes from the 8th of April CAC meeting, and they were distributed for your approval. If there are no changes, the minutes are approved as distributed. If there are changes, the recording secretary will annotate those minutes. Are there any changes?
It says April 15th. Okay, thank you.
Okay. I think I have a different version. Mine says April 8th, minute meetings. All right, very good. So we have a change. So we do have two presenters this evening. Good evening to our presenters. You will have 10 minutes to present, followed by questions from council. So our first presenter is Julia Merritt from the Annapolis Valley Regional Libraries. And Julia, we have the fanciest podium in town. It actually, you can raise it and lower it so that it's at your convenience for your presentation.
Beautiful. Thank you very much.
All right. And I won't start the clock until you've got your presentation up.
Here you go.
There we go.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for your time. I know your meetings are always busy, so I won't take up too much of your time. I'm here to briefly provide you with a general update about the library's activities over the past year, as well as an update on the the library's funding formula review. So, the good news about 2024 is that overall usage of the library is continuing to increase. Services are more in demand than ever. Overall usage has increased over 5%, and the highest areas of increase are in Wi-Fi usage and computer time usage. Both of those services saw over a 10% increase in their use in 23-24. So connectivity is still a very high demand for this region. We issued over 4,000 new memberships, which means that 1 in 5 Valley residents has an active library card, active being defined as being used within the last 24 months. So you may have a library card in your wallet and you haven't used it and you still consider yourselves a member. We do, but we're not active, we're not counting you as active. So we have 1 in 5 residents as an active user, which is an excellent outreach. You will recall that the library joined in 2022 a consortium with the other 7 rural library regions in Nova Scotia, and we now share all of our collections. We call that Same Page. Usage grew again in its second year, over 20%. So there's significant value being exchanged between all of the rural libraries. Our collections are broader and deeper by sharing them. AVRL itself borrowed over 157,000 items from the other libraries, which is, we are the heaviest user in the province. Our readers are voracious. However, in your package, you also have a copy of the library's most recent letter to the ministry, which was sent in March. And so that brings me to the funding formula review update. You can see that based on the letter and the data that we are collecting as we go and the decisions that we are having to make, that the library is struggling significantly financially, and we are reducing staff and services in order to maintain as many open hours in all 11 locations as possible. So, leading into the funding formula review, the current formula ends on March 31st of 2025. It is a fixed formula with no annual adjustments for inflation or otherwise. And that was started in 2020, is the current formula. Government has formed a committee, and it had its first meeting in April with several more scheduled through June. The committee is composed of library CEOs, board members, municipal representatives, and provincial staff from CCTH and MMAH. The Council of Regional Librarians, so that's all library CEOs, including Halifax, did already complete significant background work in 2023, setting out a shared vision and strategic priorities for future funding. This year, we are also conducting research studies on salary ranges, as well as collections and technology funding levels, so we will have up-to-date data on all 3 of those key areas of expenses for libraries. The committee's mandate is to complete its funding model options and recommendations by this fall, at which point the municipality will be reaching out to consult with municipalities on the options that are being proposed. We will be in touch regularly throughout this process to make sure that you are kept updated as well. That's it, that's all. That's the summary of the last 12 months for you. Thank you very much for your ongoing support, and I am happy to take any questions that you have at this time.
Thank you very much, Julia. Do we have any questions? Well, I have one. So this committee that you've put together, do you feel that you have the necessary horsepower to get what you need at the end of the day?
Yes, it's quite, we're representing all regions across the province, and there's a good representation from all of the different stakeholder groups.
Okay,
Yes.
And from I'll say a provincial government perspective, are they at the table and are they hearing what you're saying with regards to collections, salaries, and overall funding?
Too soon to say. We haven't yet dived into the actual numbers component. We've set up a structure and we have our targets and we know what our goals are. But the actual data is coming in the next couple of meetings, and then we're going to start talking about the numbers. And it will all depend on the final submission to the Treasury Board and whether that gets approved or not.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. We do have some questions from our members. Councillor Huntley.
Hi, thank you. I see you've listed here the AVRL borrowed over 157,000 items.
Yes.
Give me a range of what those items look like.
That can be, that's anything physical. We are also in a consortium for our online materials, but those numbers are not counted. So that could be anything from children's books to health information books, to popular fiction, to historical materials that other libraries have in their region.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor York.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank you for your presentation, but also for the work that you've been doing. The increase in usership, the increasing program offerings, and the increasing attendance at those program offerings speaks to how valuable those third places are. And the library, I think, in my humble opinion, is the best third place we have in the Annapolis Valley. And I commend the work that you and your staff are doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Council, are there any further questions? None? All right, Juliet, thank you so very much, and we'll
Thank
keep
you.
in touch.
We will do.
And our next presentation is with regards to intentionally tiny homes with Nicole Edkinson and Kirstine Rees, and they have a presentation for us. And I will tell council that I have expressed to them, they have provided some language updates for bylaws, and since we are still not with a planning director, that we will hold off on those, although they will go over to staff, and our presenters will point to the ideas of if these changes are made, then it can facilitate what they're presenting to us. Ladies, the floor is yours. And you have 10 minutes once you get started.
Thank you so much for your time today. We will make sure there's time for questions at the end. Just wait till we're up. There we go. I'm Nicole Edgson.
And I'm Kirsten Reyes, and we are from Intentionally Tiny Custom Homes. We started Intentionally Tiny Homes with in mind to create a diversity in housing. So a little bit about myself. I've been a carpenter for over 12 years. Oops. So why would you want to work with Intentionally Tiny Custom Homes? Well, we are built by women, owned by women, and operated by women. We work collaboratively with each of our clients to ensure that all of our builds meet their lifestyle needs. We support other local trade artists and entrepreneurs to strengthen our economy. And we work with other Red Seal trades to ensure that every aspect of our homes meet the highest standard of quality and meet building code requirements. We are also certified through a third party to guarantee exceeding safety standard on all of our homes, including our homes on wheels. So why live tiny or why live small? Well, building small will significantly reduce waste. It is a more efficient and environmentally sustainable way of building. It takes far less energy to cool and heat, resulting in lower energy bills. Smaller footprint, less taxes, less insurance, and less basic home repair costs. Less footprint also means less time cleaning, which means you get more time to enjoy the things that you love. Also, living small requires you to be intentional with the stuff that you're bringing to your home. So that means decreasing waste. So, as we all know, and we've heard, that we have a housing issue in our province. So we believe that living small, specifically movable mini homes, can be part of the solution. So as I go through the next slides, we're just showing you some of the models that we have. So this one is our smallest model at 20 feet. This one is 24 feet. And this one and the one previous to this one they're on wheels. And this third one is off of wheels. With this particular build, because we can build bigger, that means we're not restricted on the size of the trailer that we're building on. That means that we can meet all of the accessibility code requirements. And I'll just show you what's inside of this home, how it's designed. So we're really trying to maximize the space, using every square inch of the space for storage and making it very functional. Now, we know that with a small space, we have storage issues. We don't have a lot of room to put, all of our other knickknacks and all that stuff. So on this slide, I'm just showing you how we've creatively used the space under your stairs to use as a creative storage solution. So in your typical home, this space is normally wasted. And then on the right photograph here on this slide, we've creatively used the wall space as another solution for storage, storing your firewood.
So why we're here today, I know the mayor has shared, we won't share some of our further information, but just wanted to say, we believe that Kentville does believe in this type of change. We've done a lot of research into what matters to you and what's important from a sustainability perspective. So you're encouraging that diversity and entrepreneurship in the city. You want to look at change for greenhouse gases and air pollution. You're looking at how to change planning and adaptation to make sure everyone can live how they want to live in the community. So we just want to recognize that and say that's why we're here today. So some of what you'll see in the package ahead is some recommendations about language from the planning perspective. We were tabling at the Kentville Home Show and just wanted to share that one of the most common things people said to us is, we love your homes, but where can we put them? So that tells me we're not doing something right. So just thinking about that, we can work together. I know that we want to do the right things for people and we want to make it safe and comfortable, and it should have regulations. As Kirsten shared, we do have to make sure they meet code requirements and health and safety standards, but there's no reason why we can't allow people to live in a way that they choose to live, and we believe that's something that's important to all of you. So I think the rest you'll see in your package. We're not going to talk to, but maybe I'll just end on this picture. This gives you an idea of what a tiny home or mini home community could look like. It doesn't have to look like a bunch of mishmash little homes that we are worried about how that will stand out and what that will represent for the city. It can look different. We can move forward and look at more modern designs that look clean, classy, just look like a mini version of everyone else's modern home. So we'll leave you with that. Any questions for us?
Thank you very much for that presentation, and we do have some questions. Councillor Zabian.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. Thanks for your presentation. Just wondering, have you set any of these communities up yet? Are there any places to see them physically and not just in photos?
Not yet.
Okay.
We're brand new. So
Okay.
we're a startup business. So the few examples she shared with creativity is actually our head office.
Okay.
So we built that,
Okay.
but that's our intention, is communities and or starting.
A starting point.
Yes.
And where's your head office?
We're actually in Chevery,
Okay.
which is in the West Haunts,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
Avondale Winery,
Yeah. Okay.
Flying Apron, everyone, we're near there.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Nicole and Kirsten for bringing this to our attention. Have you done any sort of work in terms of like the financing piece around those? Because of I know that they're somewhere between 300 and 400 square feet, and sort of how people will be able to afford those, and,
Yes.
and what is the price point of them, roughly?
Yes, thank you. Great question. So depending whether it's on wheels or not on wheels, if it's on wheels, it does have to fall under like an RV loan.
Okay.
So it's possible, but falls under that category.
Okay.
If it's off wheels, then it goes through what's called a chattel mortgage.
Okay.
So similar to a build, just a little bit different, if anyone understands that. And price points, the smallest one starts at $145. Once you take it off wheels, they're $175.
Still very reasonable.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Great presentation, and all the best to you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Huntley.
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. I love the presentation. I keep thinking how much downsizing I'd have to do to actually fit into one of those. And I love the creativity of the storage under the stairs. I think you're right. There's a lot of loss storage there. So one of my questions was, I'm going to piggyback off what Councillor Savage said. It was about expenses and cost. So a couple of people I heard them talking about you at the home show. And I spoke to this lady and she said, yeah, I've wondered. She said, would I have to supply the trailer and it be moved by me, with me paying the cost? Or does the builder have it on the trailer, move it, they take care of the cost, and then it's all added into the end? How does that work?
So that would depend on what the client's preference is.
Okay.
Because
Yep.
we are custom, so they're built on trailers, so we would build them on our trailer, making sure it meets all requirements. And then the transport, whether they wanted us to arrange it or at their own leisure or cost.
Thank you. They look great. Thank you.
Are there any further questions for our presenters? Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I love the tiny homes. I'd like to have one. I'm wondering, are they all accessible? So the ones with 2 stories, obviously, wouldn't be accessible because you'd have to go upstairs. But the ones without any stairs would be accessible? Would they accommodate wheelchair users, and would they be wide enough and things like that?
Yes, great question. So that's actually why we took it off of wheels, because we wanted to make sure we could meet the adaptability requirements in Nova Scotia.
Right.
So yes,
Okay.
wheelchairs are accessible. Every part of the house will meet our requirements.
Okay.
And there's no lofts or second floors, so the beds are on the main floor.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I have the building code question. You know, we've heard numerous times that you can't get these approved because our current building code doesn't permit it. Can you expand on that a bit?
So part of it is the height restriction when it comes to, say you have a second floor. So there is a minimum height requirement that you have to meet. So that's why maybe the tiny home on wheels wouldn't necessarily meet that code. But we can also make that trailer a lot longer, eliminating the lofts and just putting it like more like a bungalow style.
Okay.
So in that sense, there's that. Also, there's the insulation code, but with technology that we have now, so spray foam insulation is a lot more denser. We can actually meet that insulation code.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Are there any further questions for our presenters? All right. Thank you so very much for your presentation this evening.
Thank you. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
So I'll introduce the directors for presenting their reports, and as usual, Director of Finance, Wanda Matthews, you get to lead us off.
Thank you. I thought I was talking to myself, perhaps. Good evening, everyone. A rather short report tonight from Finance. As is usual come audit time, we don't have May data available for you as of yet. Within the written report, though, I did note that our audit is scheduled this year on June the 4th. It will begin, which is 2 weeks earlier than last year, so we are improving, but with significant turnover and changes within the department, there was an option to provide a little bit of leeway for us and our auditors in terms of readiness. We would anticipate coming forward to audit committee and then council in July with the full report. I also note that we have our annual reporting for government has begun, so our HST offset revenue report has been submitted within the deadline. I also noted that we have done continued work around business process optimization, which I know we spoke of before, but in particular in the payroll area with a new payroll person joining us in March. And we will be implementing changes throughout 24-25. So that took a fair bit of effort the end of March into early April, which is normally our get ready for audit and budget season. However, we needed to bring that person in and get them in good standing right away. We have also been looking at the service levels that financial accounting and planning support what that might look like for Kentville Volunteer Fire Department, because we do provide accounting services for them. So a fair bit of operational discussion over the last month. We had, from a financial point of view, we have had our fourth quarter utility bills out. They were, as you can see, totaled just under 400,000. Our interim 24-25 tax bills are out. The revenue stream from that is $6,662,782. As those will be due by the end of May. In the past, we have had a practice over the last few years with COVID for the many people that would see a significant change in their bill from May to October, because our past practice had been to consistently bill people for the prior year assessment and the prior year tax rate. For those that had a significant increase in assessment values, which has been happening in around the COVID time, if the variance was significant, we would alter that to make it so they would get their prior year tax rate time their current year assessment, so they weren't seeing a $1,000 bill in May and a $4,000 bill or $5,000 bill. So that has been consistently applied. So that is happening in practice, and we will be bringing forward a policy change to council in June to formalize what the practice is for your consideration as a policy change, but wanted you to be aware that that practice was occurring. We also have seen a continued decline in our taxes receivable from prior years, which is great news. From an operating budget point of view, we have been making significant progress on our operating budget for the town, and we do still continue to anticipate bringing something forward to you in late May, which is only a few weeks to go. We have also started to prepare for the Water Commission plan as well. Our current year review and analysis of capital and operating has occurred, and the initial review. So from an operating point of view, we do currently have a surplus, that there's a significant number of audit entries that would still need to be made. But we would anticipate that the surplus will offset that, similar to what I said last year. And there may be a surplus left in the end that we would bring forward a recommendation to council for a transfer of that to reserves if that occurs. So in good solid footing on the town side, water and sewer would be looking at a deficit, consolidated still a surplus. So that's kind of the initial findings that we're seeing. From a capital point of view, we have assessed all of our capital expenditures, and with the assistance of my director colleagues and the chief of police, we have gone through those and determined what's completed and what isn't. And we are aware that there are several items that were over what the initial approved budgets were. So you also have with you a memo with a resolution, suggestion, a recommendation around how we might fund those over expenditures. Is that correct?
No, I don't have it.
Oh,
No.
that. Okay. Would you like that to be pulled up for discussion, or would you?
Do we need it? Can it go directly
For
to
audit
May council?
purposes, right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have
Okay.
8 projects that are unfunded, that we would be seeking approval from council for how to fund those as part of our 23-24 audit. So,
CAO, can we defer that to the May council meeting? Is there a requirement to, because I would really like council to have the opportunity to read it rather than look at it on a screen, especially where we're talking about projects that are underfunded or,
Yep. And
so.
most of them, when you do see it, most of them have come up through our forecast discussion. But there are recommendations included in the report around how we would suggest they be funded. And as long as, from my perspective, it would be really helpful for audit purposes if we knew before the June 4th date when they arrive to account for that. So that meeting in May would be sufficient for us.
Yes, I would rather see it come forward at May,
Great.
where council's had an opportunity to review it in detail and bring forward any questions. I was probably the middleman between Wanda and Jennifer that mixed it up, so my apologies.
That's okay. I was ill on Friday, and so that probably didn't help matters. You may have noticed that there was a report, the CAO's report around legal fees was appended to my finance report, but our CAO will be able to speak to that as part of his report, which would be what we've done in the past. So
Okay,
that is it for me.
thank you very much for that report. Council, do you have any questions with regards to the staff report from Finance? Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Director, I just had a question, and this is more around process, so it may be something that you may need to take away and
Sure.
discuss with the CAO. The top section there, we're talking about de-transfer tax policy
Yep.
implementation is underway. I have been asked this by a couple of realtors, that if purchase and sale agreements have been signed on or
Right.
before, I know the implementation date is set to be July 1st. But if those purchase and sale agreements have been signed on or before July the 1st, but they don't necessarily close until
Right.
after that July 1st date, excuse me, would that tax be imposed on those? And if this is a takeaway, that's fine.
I believe it would be a takeaway.
Okay.
We have reviewed the MGA and still have to reach out to council around how that's to be interpreted.
Okay.
And we have communicated with the assessment
Yes.
folks who would be, that's Access Nova Scotia, the people who would be doing the implementation for us.
Okay.
And they have given us guidance that we would like to have validated by our council, so that communication is ongoing.
Okay,
So we
thank you.
will be able to get an answer to you short order,
Would you like me to address that?
or
That would
if you
help.
can do that off the top of your
The
head.
answer is, if the agreement's dated prior to the implementation date, it's exempt.
Thank you.
There you go.
Solicitor, before you walk away, that's just by virtue of law, or do we actually have to put that in policy?
No, that's by virtue of the Municipal Government
Good
Act.
Act.
So every time a transaction closes, the purchaser's lawyer will evaluate the situation and determine whether the tax is applicable, and there's an affidavit that gets signed by the purchaser and filed, and the tax is paid if it's applicable.
Thank you.
Great.
All right, are there any further questions for the Director of Finance? All right, Director, thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't know whether Director Bell wants to provide a brief update in planning or whether he would like me to do it, but he's moving to the
I'm on.
podium, so.
I can start and you can finish, CAO. Brief update, I guess, we don't have a formal planning report, once again this month, with our staff. We continue to use our contracted, planning and development officers, through the firm of C+D. We're getting into the busier time of year, so, Lindsay Young, who has stepped up to certainly help with that intake. She and Sienna Link, who we're using currently as our part-time intake person, are doing that on a daily basis and forwarding, plans, building plans, subdivision approvals, that sort of thing to our contracted planners. And the other update within the department, we have posted and closed the job application for the Director of Planning, done an internal review with the help of a consultant as well to shortlist candidates and have begun the interview process. So we interviewed one candidate last week and we'll do 3 more this week, and ultimately hope to have a recommendation within the following week. So we're getting close to having that Director of Planning. Don't want to promise a date, but we would think mid to late June would be a reasonable time to expect to have a director on staff once again. So looking forward to that.
Thank you, Director Bell. CAO, did you want to go before we open for questions, or did you have anything to add?
I would just add a little bit to what Dave Bell said on the front-facing piece. That has been the biggest challenge for us. C+D has provided good services. We've used Sue Carey in a transition role and Sienna Link, and Lindsay has been the bridge piece between the two. We're facing some additional challenges now. This is the busiest time of the year for Lindsay, and certainly kudos for her for stepping to the plate. But other than that, I think Mr. Bell has covered everything.
All right, Council, are there any questions for Director Bell with regards to planning? All right, they're letting you off easy tonight, Director.
Not yet. He's got to come back again.
Come back, I'll be back.
So, we've asked Director Langell to provide the recreation report, and also I think Part C is being presented by two of his staff members. I would ask him at that time to introduce them.
Sure. Yes, in front of you, you have the CEC report for recreation for the month of April. My focus today with council will be under facilities and operations. The first item being the Gorge Park. Myself and Becca, who is here as well today to present, we met with a professor from Acadia University to look at some of the failures that are happening along the creek within the gorge. There are many trees that are starting to collapse inward, and the depth and width of the creek are starting to expand. So we were looking at completing a risk assessment of the gorge, and this is particularly involved with our Curious Gorge Bridge project for capital, which will have an impact on it currently, and then with any future trail building in the area. So we just want to ensure that if we are building something, it's not going to be, there's not a risk associated with afterwards and losing it if we're going to be spending money to put into it. So just an update on the Gorge Park. Miners Marsh, this is, Ducks Unlimited had installed a new culvert in between the two ponds to distribute water. That was a public concern for many years. They covered the cost and they did the work, and it is done and it's working well. We will see how it looks when it comes to summertime and more of the hot weather, but we'll check back with council more towards July. The Memorial Park bleachers are now open, past inspection, and ready to go for the upcoming season. Again, just to reiterate, this is an accessible bleacher, and it is your initiative, and we thank you for your support in making it happen. And then finally, the safe disposal units. So it is not uncommon for our park staff to find sharps throughout the community. There were 2 areas in cleanup this year that we saw an uptake in it. So we're conversing with City of Moncton, Cape Breton Region Municipality, City of Penticton in BC to determine what a safe disposal plan would look like to ensure the safety of obviously our patrons, our staff that are completing the work. And I will be updating council, mayor and council with updates on how we're progressing with it over the coming months. And that's my report.
All
Any
right.
questions?
Thank you very much for that. Council, do you have any questions with regards to this report? Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. Maybe I'm supposed to know this, but what is the RFP for the cenotaph?
That's the staircase.
Oh, what going
Oh,
up?
sorry, request for proposal. So that's
Yeah.
our tendering to go for the staircase railings.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Hi, Craig. I just have a few questions.
Sure.
So the grants that you talk about at the beginning of your report, they were roughly about 19,000. So I'm assuming that when the operating budget comes before us, those are actual amounts and they'll be incorporated into that budget, revenue-wise? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Miners Marsh. Is there ever any more discussions with Ducks Unlimited in terms of doing more with Miners Marsh? Any sort of improvements? I do get that question quite a bit from an array of people.
Yeah, there's been back and forth with our department and Ducks Unlimited in regards to another viewing platform. It does get a little dicey when we're dealing with putting in those platforms within the Miners Marsh area and being conservation space.
Yes.
And getting through Environment Canada. So the conversation's kind of stalled. There was also discussions in regards to expanding the trail more around and into near the dog park.
Okay.
But again, those discussions have stalled. Yeah.
Okay. Question around the safe disposal units. So that's, that is something that I have talked to a number of people about as well. And when you say sharps, I'm assuming that is another terminology for what potentially could be a sharp object or needles or anything that falls under that. So these safe disposal units, which I'm a big proponent of, I really am, because it's a safe spot for people to use to put in a receptacle that's safe. I'm assuming they have it in other communities, and do we know how it works? Does it work well? Is it well received by the community at large? And I know it's a touchy subject, but I just asked the question.
Yeah. So these are permanent structures, so they'd be very similar. They would go basically beside a garbage can recycling bin. And there are services that are out there where companies will come in and remove all the sharps for you, dispose of them, and replace the bin. So our staff are not touching any objects. Our staff do if there are single needles or other type of sharps that are out in our park spaces.
Okay.
They will clean it up, or if they're downtown, Public Works will take care of it,
Right.
and sometimes KPS as well. But there are services out there that will protect our staff and the public when it comes to disposing.
Right,
Yeah.
wonderful, okay. And the last thing I had, sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Skateboard shelter, skate park shelter.
Yeah, so that was proposed to council, and right now we have a request for proposal out, very similar to the one that's being put in right now in Memorial Park beside the tennis courts and behind the basketball court.
Yeah.
It's a 12 by 12 shelter with a roof.
Yes, I knew about that one.
Yeah, so this is the same
Very
type of
similar.
unit, which we don't have any shelter over at skate park.
Yes, exactly, okay, great, that's it, that's all I have.
Councillor York.
Thank you. Director Langell, you mentioned it briefly, but
Yeah.
if residents do find sharps or needles or whatever, they can and should call KPS, the non-emergency line, and they will come and dispose of them safely. So just don't touch anything.
Yes.
But call the non-emergency line and somebody will take care of it. In the interim, before we get the sharps containers, are we able to post the non-emergency number in locations where you've noticed an increase of those sharps, just so people can have that number at hand?
We can, yeah.
It's not typically something people save in their phones, but that would be an easy interim solution. That's all.
All right. Are there any further questions for the director with regards to the report that has just been presented? All right, next.
My next report is the proposed Kentville racket facility. Just wanted to highlight under the request from the Kings County Tennis Association. They are looking for a 50-year lease from 2024 to 2074 with an option to renew for 50 years. They're looking for water and sewer, requesting the town provide these services to the street, and they'll take it from the street into the facility. And then under financial commitment, whichever piece of property is determined by council, there will be a financial ask associated with it, upwards of $500,000. We have evaluated all of our spaces, and we have come up with a solution that we feel would meet the needs of everybody. And that is located at the industrial park between Donnelly Hills and Chipman Drive. It is 10.5 acres. It is visible to the highway, and it is, I think, 1.7 kilometers from exit 14. So our recommendation, staff recommendation, would be to staff have identified a parcel of land in the industrial park that would not provide an impact to town's current assets or impact any current user groups utilizing park and recreational space. Staff recommend the council approve and provide the Kings County Tennis Association with the industrial park land located near Donnelly Hills and Chipman Drive.
So, if I may, your worship, one of the in-camera items deals with that industrial land. So before we get into any discussion or debate in that site, I would like council to have heard the proposal that is part of the in-camera session.
Thank you, CAO. So, council, if you have any questions with regards to this report, but not with regards to that piece of land, those questions have to go in camera. So if you do have questions about this proposed, or this report, Director Langell is here now for, to respond to those. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try and ask it without referring
Okay.
to the land. Hypothetically, if this piece of land is for these folks, am I to understand that the financial commitment would still be upwards, like, I know the 50-year lease, I understand that piece, that would apply to it, because essentially we'd be leasing them the land, so to
Yeah.
speak. But then you're saying that there also is an ask of $500,000 on top of that land.
There may be, yes.
There may be.
Yeah. So my discussions with the Kings County Tennis Association was that they're trying to get out of this project being debt-free is kind of their end goal.
Okay.
And they would be looking at the town for a financial commitment on top of land. Mainly if the piece of property needs substantial amount of excavation to make it work and build up, then they would probably most likely be coming to the town for financial assistance for that. This is something very similar that they proposed back in June 2023 and January 2024. It is not new. This is the same request. It's just they said they cannot provide a solid number at this time until they see the piece of property.
And is that piece of property shovel-ready?
It's unimproved.
Thank you.
CAO, before we go to you,
Through
Councillor
you, your
Maxwell.
worship, the two pieces aren't necessarily connected. The land is the land, and the request would be an ask on top of that, but they're not, you don't necessarily have to commit to both.
All right. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I find I hardly ever criticize recreation, but I'm really disappointed that you didn't look at Oak Dean Park other than what was stated before. I'm not surprised because there has been no facility gone to the north end of town in Kentville ever, except for Oak Dean Park, and that took decades to come there in the first place. I was hoping that if you were going to turn it away, it would be on something that I could not dispute, like there's, it's boggy, it's, would provide noise, something. But the reason that you've turned it down is, as I said before, you want to wait on 2 soccer fields that might get used once in a while. So we have all this space up there that's not being used 90% of the time and is just sitting there. Whereas if this facility went on the upper soccer field or even the lower one, you would have night lighting in the park, which would allow, people that are playing basketball to play basketball a little bit longer. The memorial that's there was not initiated by the town at all, and it's not a community memorial at all. And I just am really, really disheartened that the town is recommending, again, sending a recreational facility out to the other end of town. I think that I as a lifetime resident in that area, feel very slighted, again. And I could shoot down every one of the things that you've said there for your rationale. I spent a lot of time in my job scheduling a gymnasium, 2 gymnasiums, and a soccer field and baseball fields. and I'm well-versed in knowing how to maximize use of facility. And I just have to state that I am extremely disappointed in this, and if we're going that way, what we're doing is we are taking away any business that spin-off that could come from something like this for the business sector of this town, and we're taking away the walkability to that facility. And if you could explain to me and make it make sense, I'd be okay with it, but absolutely, to me, it makes absolutely no sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to respond? Do you want to do anything?
Director, would you like to respond, or?
I will say that we have recently done community outreach in the area, which is within that report as well. I understand you have lived in the community for a long time. We really appreciate your feedback. The responses that were received back from the community in that area was in regards to improving the current spaces that we own and operate, improving safety and lighting. But I fully understand where you're coming from and understand as a resident where you're coming from as well.
Several residents asked about a tennis facility there. I believe that survey was done before this was even a thought. So, of course, they're gonna say, develop what you already have there. But they're not gonna say, put a tennis facility there when they don't know anything about tennis facility, right?
Yeah, what was in the survey was for a recreational hub, so a programming space for the area.
But it wasn't for tennis facility.
Councillor Zabian.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. Thanks, Director, for your report. It was detailed and great to read. We've been a year now since they came to ask for a piece of land, and I've sat here 3 or 4 times now, and I've said the same thing, that we almost are making it so difficult when we have this group here. I remember last year they did have a mention of financial in their original request, but I had asked the presenter that night, and that to me is a separate issue. I say let's find them a piece of land, as the CEO said. We deal with that as part A. Part B, that's after. I'm not a fan of the business park putting a facility there. I know we have the land there. I don't see that as logical myself. I'm just one person, but I don't. I have to agree with Councillor Maxwell. I think that would be a great location for it, on the other side of town. And I hate to say the other side of town, but that's what we call it. And it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. I just think that'd be a great spot for it. It'd be nice to do an investment there for a change. And facilities don't all have to be together. We know that. They can be spread out. For the life of me, I'm pleading with all of you around this horseshoe. Let's get something in place, and let's have this, it's not going to be done in this term, but let's have something cemented so that we can say that we've helped bring this to Kentville for once and all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, are there any further questions with regards to this racket facility report? Next.
Okay, we have a presentation. We have Laura Jacobs, our Manager of Recreational Services, and Becca Craig, who is our Active Living Program Coordinator.
Jennifer, is it already up on the screen?
Nope, I'm gonna do that now.
No, that's not, no. Sorry. Okay. Are you pulling it up, Jennifer?
I am pulling it up.
Okay,
Yeah.
you are, okay, good. Pressure's off me then. there's an arrow on the right-hand side of your screen that has two arrows pointing the opposite direction. There you go.
Okay. Thank you to Mayor and Council and community and CAO for this opportunity to speak with you today. We're here to give you a bit of an update and overview on our department's activities and what we have planned for the coming months. So Amanda is what I call our connector and conduit. This role prioritizes communication, and Amanda has created processes and formats that establish clarity on how we share information within the department and out into community. She's also created a communications plan that will serve to guide us with our operations plan, in addition to all of the day-to-day administrative tasks that land on her desk. Click. All right, our Neighborhood Outreach Program Coordinator. This role is extremely innovative within the recreation sector, and Kentville once again is leading the way in prioritizing community engagement through the creation of this role. In the work of developing a community engagement framework, he's utilizing the concept of activating your neighborhood. This concept is in a relationship with our work as a pilot community with CPRA, the Canadian Parks and Recreation Association. The priority in this project is giving ownership of recreation back to our community. Recreation does not belong to us, it belongs to everyone, and we are stewards of the work that supports recreation to exist and grow. This role is absolutely critical in building strong and sustainable relationships within the community. Becca, the MPAL role, or as we refer to it as the Active Living Community Coordinator, is responsible for cultivating and providing opportunities for people to incorporate physical activity within their everyday lives. This role is absolutely vital in supporting the health and well-being of the entirety of our community. And then there's me. As Manager of Recreation Services, one of the key priorities for my role is the development of a comprehensive recreation programming strategy. I have completed the initial phases of our program review, our facility use, and community demographics analysis, and we are currently in the first phase of community engagement and feedback. Each of these components will be used in developing recommendations for our department and then incorporated into our operational plan. Within our overall review of recreation programming, we've taken the time to evaluate various models of summer camp that have been facilitated by the Recreation Department. As per the Director's report to Council in March of 2023, the Recreation Department would be offering less day camp opportunities, but would be working with Kings County Family Resource Center to provide daily childcare services. Upon review of the 2023 summer program, several key factors and red flags were identified. Infrastructure and facilities being the first. The day camp program utilized multiple locations in an attempt to find an adequate base for the program to operate out of. All of these locations were challenging due to safety concerns, in particular lack of climate control. We had several reports from leaders and parents with participants suffering from heat exhaustion. We did a review of potential locations within the community, and the pros and cons of each were discussed at length. However, realistically, each of these would be temporary options without long-term sustainability, and each presented inherent safety risks. Ultimately, it appears as though we're trying to find a place to put kids rather than providing a safe environment for kids to be kids. And we believe our children deserve better than that. Secondary, our leadership capacity. Last year, ECEs, or early childhood educators, were hired to administer the program with the intention of providing more qualified staff to manage the needs of the participants in the program. The challenge then became that these staff were not trained in recreation programming skills and struggled to facilitate activities relevant to the program. Additionally, staff reported feeling burnt out and overworked based on the hours and expectations of the role. In the past 2 years, TOK saw staff leave mid-season, causing further distress to the remaining staff. And lastly, discipline and behavioral considerations. Staff and parents reported multiple incidents from participants in the program. This led to significant stress among leaders, participants, and families. The framework of leadership training does not provide adequate capacity to manage elevated behavioral concerns. Kings County Family Resource Center engaged in a review of the program and determined that they would not be able to participate moving forward as it doesn't align with their service model. Our priority moving forward is recognizing the benefits of recreational opportunities and shifting the parameters of our programs to ensure they are safe and beneficial to our community. Throughout the summer, we will be hosting weekly half-day programs that focus on specific interest-based activities. We're calling these our Littles camps. We will have little explorers, little builders, little artists, little athletes, and little scientists. You can click away from me. In planning the summer, we're working strategically to utilize the current feedback and build out a plan that will not only boost programming for the summer, but serve as a catalyst to increase the annual programming schedule. For example, we're planning to host beginner bird workshops in June. Then until July and August, we will incorporate the knowledge and activities into our programs. And then in the fall, we'll host monthly bird meetups at various locations throughout Kentville. We're very excited to work with the bird team and our climate coordinator to bring an interdepartmental lens to celebrate Kentville as a bird-friendly town. This is the essence of creating sustainable programming. It does not solely exist as a one-off opportunity, but we offer sparks of interest and then incorporate them into ongoing programming.
Hi, everyone. As the Active Living Community Coordinator, my focus over the past year has been delving deep into the community's recreational, sport, and leisure needs. In 2022, a provincially run physical activity survey provided invaluable insights into our residents' desires and aspirations. What emerged was a clear call for a more locally rooted opportunity that prioritized social connectivity, flexibility, inclusivity, and family engagement. At our annual community partner gathering, various organizations echoed that need for joint recreational programming and expanded facility access options to address service gaps and enhance the diversity in our programs. To kick off our summer planning, our outreach team is actively engaging with those partners to explore direct collaboration opportunities. With this wealth of information, along with the research from the broader recreation sector, we're focused on meeting our community needs by creating playful spaces and programs that dismantle barriers and welcome everyone to participate using the decentralized model. We're reimagining, rethinking, and repurposing the spaces in our neighborhoods to activate, support, and encourage physical activity and social connections. As you can see from the calendar, June is nationally recognized as Recreation Month, and so our aim is to energize our town with a diverse range of free activities that cater to different interests, abilities, and age groups. We've themed our programs into 4 main categories: sport, parasport, and active transportation, arts, culture, and food, playful recreation and leisure activities, and then outdoor education and environmental stewardship. The calendar is a little bit visually messy, but it's meant to show how much we're working on organizing for the summer. We are taking June to create a platform for all of our summer planning and build links between the 2 months of summer to our other 10 years, or 10 months, sorry, over 10 years of our year-round work plans.
The calendar includes programs for all demographics within our community. Stroller Club is an offshoot of the UP program. Parents or guardians can come together every week and walk the track while their little ones play in the field. Our staff will be there to help facilitate activities and bring play equipment to engage the kids. Kentville Plays, Nature Crafts, bike play dates, and our play zones will invite families and all ages to participate in activities together. And our seniors' arts and crafts sessions will provide fun, relaxing afternoons with our older generation. This style of programming aims to be more inclusive and accessible, focusing on opportunities that develop skills and interests that our community can then incorporate into their daily lives. For example, the Growing Gardeners Club invites children and youth to discover the value of gardening, conservation, composting, and food sustainability. Each participant will get their own set of tools and a seed starter kit so they can take the program home with them and to continue to grow their skills outside the program. March Break is a perfect example of this model of programming. We offered a series of fun, free activities open to all ages, and in total, approximately 370 people engaged in these events over just 1 week. Just as a comparison, more traditional summer programming supports on average between 30 to 40 participants on a weekly basis. This is just the first layer of programming we have planned for summer. Part of our leadership development model is that we build opportunities for our outreach staff to create and facilitate their own initiatives for the community. We've hired some of the most outstanding students from Acadia's community development program, and from their interviews alone, we know they will bring a really unique perspective to our organization. Additionally, we've created a youth outreach leadership position this year. Traditionally, summer hiring has been directed towards university students. We want to create an opportunity specifically for a high school student to participate in our programming. We should also note that we have hired 10 aquatics leaders to facilitate the pool program, and they range in age from 15 to 20. This work comes from the entirety of our department. Our goal is to produce high-quality, innovative, sustainable programs for the entire community to celebrate and amplify the work of our department and this town. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you very much. Council, if there are questions, Councillor York.
Thank you. I've had quite a bit of feedback from the community on the announcement that there would be no summer programming, and I have a couple of questions that I'm hoping that you can follow up on. You mentioned that there were some red flags with facilities and being able to find one that would be suitable for the needs of camp. Can you, and perhaps it's something that you can follow up with, but could you let us know which facilities you looked at and if there was a partnership opportunity explored, like with the fire hall or church basements or the gymnastics gym? I apologize. This will just be a bunch of questions, and if you can answer at the end, awesome. If it's an email, great.
Okay.
I do have concerns when we talk about barriers to access, and one of the barriers to access is, half-day programming is going to leave out an entire swath of kids who might not be able to have somebody pick them up midday, that relies on an adult to be able to come midday and scoop you up and either drop you off or pick you up. And I find it's going to be a specific subset of children who are going to be able to participate in that type of programming. So I do have concerns about barriers to access for that. We talk a lot about physical activity and social interaction, and I think camps provide that opportunity for some of the youngest people in our community to get an opportunity to explore the town for the first time or for the second time, but it certainly introduces them and then subsequently their families to all that the town has to offer. And I and also some of the residents that I've spoken with are concerned that that opportunity is going to be removed. And when we talked about, or rather when you talked about a program cap of, or program participation of about 30 to 40 children, is that because there was a program cap? So only 30 to 40 students could participate at a time? Because that would kind of skew the numbers a little bit in terms of how many people can participate in drop-in programming versus capped programming. I am disappointed that camps are not an option. It's one of the things that we do well, and it's one of the things that our residents rely on year after year. And the need for camp being childcare and the need for camp being adventure is really none of our business as to why people participate, but it's something that people participated in for a variety of reasons. I also have concerns about how this impacts our municipal partners. So does New Minas and Port Williams have to alter their programming to accommodate the lack of programming, the lack of camp programming here? I know Port Williams, for instance, is limiting or putting restrictions on who can participate and who can't in the Port Williams camps. And I'm wondering if that, what types of impacts that decision has made in our municipal partners as well.
Sure. If I can remember all of them, we'll try to get to all of them. From a facility lens, we primarily looked at our town-owned first and foremost. And that also is in a relationship to the cap numbers and the size and space that would accommodate. A lot of them, if you want to talk about the rec hub, the climate control was the primary concern to that space, and unable to alter that space with any immediate attention. I know it was suggested potentially an air conditioning unit, and the windows in that space don't accommodate that simple solution, but there could be a long-term potential. That space would not be designed for more than 15 to 20 participants in a camp, so that would limit sort of that cap numbers that you referenced. Other spaces that were utilized last year and previous years around the arena. I'm not a facilities manager, so we did talk to our facilities manager about the potential for using that space, and he indicated that there were quite a bit of inherent risks to utilizing that space based on safety and kids running around. Again, it's not a space that's designed for small children to be in that capacity. We did talk about potential partnerships with other spaces in the community, and there isn't any longevity in that. The feedback was potential for a partnership in the short term, but they have other users in that space and felt that there isn't really, it might not be applicable to all ages to utilize that space, and alterations to current bookings that they have in the upcoming season. Capped numbers, as you refer to, is based on ratios to leaderships and participants, and also in relationship to the space. Municipal partners. So we did have conversations at the Valley Recreation table as how this could impact, especially our direct neighbors. Apologies, should have brought water up. New Minus, just a cup on the ground. New Minus was aware of the changes that we were making, and they are able to accommodate that. In follow-up to, they have not received full registration to their programs as much as they were anticipating, but they did have capacity within their space to increase their registration as necessary. I don't know if I hit on all your points.
I've got notes, so if I think of something or if it comes up in conversation, we're good.
All right. Councillor Zabian.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. I have a couple questions. The first one is in the report that council received last Wednesday, so say 10 days ago, there was a mention that the town usually costs the town between 10 and I think it was between 12 and 20,000 a year for us to, by the time staff is paid, and it's a pay service, so at the end of the day, I think it's between 12 and 20,000. What are you projecting the cost to run these? Do you know, have you run any numbers on what these camps are gonna cost, what you think?
We're running these costs at a break even.
Okay.
Our projection for summer camps runs, for the traditional summer camp model, runs anywhere between 20 and 30 at a deficit. But our projections are to break even for our current.
And what, these aren't posted online, right, to book yet, correct? Are they on?
No.
Okay. What are the costs to attend those? Have you worked those out on some of those?
Yeah, so there's probably less than 10 programs that have
Okay.
a cost associated to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in a relationship to supplies. So as I mentioned, the growing gardeners, to offset the cost of those, knowing that we do have some grant allocations that will offset that as well.
Okay.
And then the majority of them will be free programming to the community.
So the majority of those programs, though, aren't really, and I didn't read them all because I didn't understand what some of them were yet, but the majority of them aren't a situation where you'd leave your kid there for 4 or 5 hours. A lot of them are, an adult should be with them. Is that what I understood?
So we have a structure of camps that will run half days. So we know in the earliest part of the day is the safest part of the day for kids to be outside, and these are outdoor-based activities. So it is drop-off. Those would be pre-registered opportunities for kids. And then there will be secondary. What's not on that slide is all of the other programming that is very traditional to Kentville, such as tennis lessons and those things. So those are all drop-off opportunities as well.
I just have 2 more questions. The first one is, you just mentioned that New Minas was aware. When were they aware that we were not going to offer this service?
So day camp planning and
Right.
training is a regional initiative, and I sit on that committee in Valley Recreation. So not in a confirmation
Yeah.
that we weren't going to do this, but there was the potential that we would not be moving forward with. And that had been ongoing conversation based on the 2023 shift that the Recreation Department had made towards a partnership for childcare services. So it had been an ongoing conversation.
I guess where I'm going to voice where I'm just disappointed is that we as a council found this out 10 days ago, and then consequently the public found out the next day. If recreation was struggling with these issues, like, you know, the rec hub didn't have air conditioning in it, why not come to us in February and say, you know what, we need a little money for an AC unit, whether it's a floor or a heat pump. We've put heat pumps in this building. I'm sure, I'm not going to speak for all of you, but I know the 6 people around here with me 6, right? They all would have said, yes, let's get them a heat pump at the rec hub. I know that. They would never have taken the risk and tossed this program out the window. I can actually say that for all of them around this horseshoe. So that's where I'm disappointed. It kind of slid in, and we're now at a situation where, I'm not gonna get too much into this because we've got an RFD next, but that's where I'm disappointed that it wasn't, nobody came here earlier and said, these are our struggles. We don't think we can run this program anymore. Here's why. I want to know why you can't do it. And it would have been nice to have the time to remedy that, because I'm sure they would have, because how it looks now is that, and I know you're all doing great jobs, but it looks like we have more people and less delivery of service. And that's what the optics look like right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple of comments because the two councillors before me had asked a lot of what I had written down here. So you have responded, so thank you for that. So I took some time, obviously, and I reviewed the June and the July and the August, and there certainly appears to be a great array of programs, growing gardens, tennis, concerts, crafts, etc. And so I'm seeing the inclusivity piece is probably at the helm of that, and diversity, and certainly looking at community program versus summer camps is probably how it was looked at. I'm just wondering how you actually, or did you actually engage with public and do some sort of public consultation around this piece? That's one question, then I have another couple comments.
So we're currently in the process of receiving feedback around our programming strategy. And then I think I can't speak to the feedback direct to summer camps because they do that at the end of a programming cycle. And what we're looking at more so is the longevity of programs, so that the entirety of our resources are not going to 2 months of the year, but how we can serve community over an annual perspective. And obviously Becca's role works in a 5-year strategy, and what can we do moving forward to build that sustainability.
So I think, and I just wanted to make one more comment. I mean, obviously, change is key, and you grow, you move forward. That said, I think, and I said this to a number of people, Kentville is very much steeped in tradition, and this is something that we'd always offered. So I think to completely phase them out in one cycle is really difficult for the community to accept, and it's difficult for all of us to accept. I shouldn't say all of us. I think it is. So I'll reserve the majority of my comments for when we have the request for decision to come forward. But I don't want to say without that, thank you for everything that you do. It's amazing what you do. The department is very diverse, and what you're putting forward is, they're all very good things and very important. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I just have a few questions. So when I look at this, really there isn't an opportunity for a parent to say, okay, I'm going to put you in this on Monday, that on Tuesday, and go 5 days a week, 9 to 5, in various activities, is it? You can't really do that, can you?
No, again, we were taking a lens of recreational opportunities versus childcare opportunities.
Right, okay, yeah. So with what happened last year, this is pretty similar to what was done last year, is it not? The camp was run by an outside agency, is that right?
No, the intention was to run it as a partnership, but what ended up happening was Town of Kentville owned the majority of the workload. So all the hiring, registration, staff management went through the Town of Kentville, and King's Family Resource were support in engaging the appropriate staff, but it was housed within the Town of Kentville. Okay, so there's a couple of questions that I want, because that didn't work for this year. So do you know how many participants, and maybe I missed this in your presentation, were engaged in the camp type activities last year? Like, how many people in total were involved in camp? In relationship to the childcare model that was proposed?
I think probably what people are looking for is a childcare model. They want somebody, they want to be able to take their kid, put them in an activity at 9 o'clock and pick them up at 5 o'clock.
Right.
Let's be honest, that's what
Okay.
it is, right? So, for most, that's what it is in the summer, because parents are still working except during vacation time. So, the number of people that the ECEs were running,
Yeah.
were looking after last year was how many?
So the capacity of those programs was 38 participants a day. When we looked at the numbers today, based on last year's registration, there was anywhere between 30 to 36 in daily attendance. I think there were two weeks that it reached capacity, but there was no wait list, and that was the service, around 30, 32.
And through this type of program, how many people can be accommodated? How many, so what you did last year would be sort of similar. How many people would be accommodated? So we're looking at around 38 we could enroll in camp. And then if we continued on with this type of program, how many participants would you think in this type of program?
So again, that's why we brought up the numbers around March break, to look at that sort of
Yeah.
full service model. And I think you can anticipate anywhere between 50 to 100 community members over a weekly attendance in the variety of programming.
Okay, so do I need to consider that if I say I want a camp, that then some of these things have to disappear?
Yeah, so we discussed that as a department as a potential question, and 50 to 60% of what you see on that calendar is my priority. And so if we were to shift, you would see that come off as I would shift my workload towards the hiring and capacity building for staff and programming to accommodate a camp.
Okay, so what I would be looking at then is decreasing the number of participants in summer recreation programming if we shift to a camp model.
Yes.
That's correct?
Yes.
Okay, now, if we go to a camp model, we would have to hire people to look after the children. What kind of qualifications would they have to have? Because being a former physical educator, I know that you have to deal with ratios, so many children to so many adults, and those children, those people that are looking after the children have to be qualified. They can't just be, I can't go pick somebody off a street and say, here's 30 kids, or like, what's the ratio of one person to how many students, and what qualifications would they have to have?
So we would anticipate a 1 to 10 ratio would be what we are most comfortable with.
Okay.
We would be looking and prioritizing hiring ECEs that have the capacity to handle children, particularly of the younger age groups. And we would need upwards of 5 or 6 staff in total in order to be able to run the programs this summer.
Okay. So is that cost higher than offering the July-August program that we have now?
Yes, you would see a deficit of between $20,000 to $30,000.
$20,000 to $30,000, okay. Yeah, because I recognize that there is a liability issue, and I also recognize that we have more children with disabilities now in our schools and in our communities than we've ever had. So autism and Asperger's and then physical disabilities and things like that. So people have to be qualified, because if something happens, then there is going to be a legal liability there. No parent is going to say, oh, well, too bad, so sad. They're going to come after us. And so that, and that's increased over the years, I do believe.
Yeah, and to that point, those would be additional staff that we would look at, particularly from a lens of helping support those with additional needs. So the majority of camps in the region have accessibility leaders that they hire in addition to their regular camp staff to help support children that we see in school systems have one-on-one support and require that to participate.
Okay, so you would then hire
Additional
5 to
staff.
6 staff plus additional staff depending on what needs are that you
Yes.
have within
Yeah.
your camp. Okay, okay, I get that answer. Just Okay, I think I have everything here. What I'm concerned about is having maximum participation by young people in recreation over the summer, not limiting what's available. That is huge for me. And I also see it and I'll come up with some other solutions when we discuss. So, okay, thank you for your information.
Thank you.
Okay.
Counselor Huntley.
Thank you. Hi, Laura and Becca. Just a couple of questions. So I have no children. Pretend I know nothing. A day camp runs 8 to 4 or 9 to 5? What's the time?
Typically, the structure is promoted as 8 to 4, and
Okay.
then camps provide additional time on either end to be able to accommodate drop-off and pickup times.
Okay.
So the best case scenario would you could offer camps between 7:30 and 5:30,
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. June to August?
July and August.
July, okay. Oh, okay. One of the questions, because I noticed it was made in a comment here, it talked about staff burnout. Can you touch on a little bit about that for me, please?
So it is in relationship to the hours, as you mentioned. So when we're looking at potentially a 9 to 10 hour day for staff,
Yes.
that in itself leads to burnout, on top of the capacity that we're asking them to deal with multiple children and multiple needs, and not necessarily having the training or capacity to handle that on top of the hours. And in addition to what I can reference from the reports of last year was the multiple transitions between locations. There was no foundation or stability in what they were offering to the camps. And then again, additionally, regular day camp issues of challenges with parents and participants and discipline led to enough distress that we saw staff leaving their employment midsummer.
Okay, thank you. There's been a lot of comments about can it be held in church basements, Lions Hall, et cetera. One, obviously, have you looked into that? But two, if you have, was there any questions that came up about insurance? Because when you go into another building that's not yours, does that affect our insurance or their insurance?
It would affect their insurance, but
Yeah, okay.
we, as Town of Kentville, within our programming, all of registered participants land under ours. In reference to churches, not all community feels connection or a sense of belonging in those spaces, so that could potentially increase barriers to their participation, and can be said for other potential community centers that they
Yes.
don't have the same connection to.
Okay. Okay, so some of the programs that you've listed right now, let's say tennis, basketball, gardening, whatever. Is there a thought or a way to do, so example.
Counselor, please.
8 to 11 tennis, 12 to 1 lunch. I'm just examples, right? 1 to 5 basketball or 1 to 4, whatever, whatever time it is. The children would still be there all day, but it would be a different rotation of staff doing each program. Is that possible?
Again, the thought was around balancing the needs of our staff as a priority too, and their health and wellness based on reflections of the past, and then looking at the longevity of the calendar, that we wanted to extend programming beyond daytime hours to incorporate additional community and into weekends. You'll also see that our staff participate in major community events. When you look at nationals and what it takes to host a major national tournament and what that implies, we wanted to be able to balance out what their hours would look like to better serve community.
And in total, how many staff does it take to run day camps?
Best case scenario, I would love to see 5 or 6 staff, and then hire additional support staff based on participants
Needs.
registered that have maybe particular needs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right, I have a couple questions for you. How many students were hired to support these recreation activities in 2023?
Becca can answer that.
I believe we had around 8 staff last year.
Okay, and did that include the 3 ECCs?
ECEs, yes.
So that's 5 students plus 3
So
early education? Is
we
that-
had, just let me count them up in my head. 4 leaders, and then we had 2, sorry, I don't have it in front of me right now. Just one second. Yeah, we had 7 staff, and 2 or 3 of them were ECEs, and then the rest were like assistant recreational leaders.
Okay. So what is, under this new plan, how many students do you plan to hire to conduct this activity?
So under this current plan, we would hire, 5 outreach staff, we have a summer director that overcaps aquatics and summer programming staff, and then that youth outreach position, and our 10 aquatic staff.
And the 10 aquatic staff, that was the same in 2023?
I believe so.
We had 9 last year.
So 9. So you're increasing your aquatics by 1, and from what I can see, your summer students are also increasing from last year. So we do not have less, I'll say, kids hired to do these jobs this year, in 2024.
We have the same format for the outreach staff that would do the programming as were suggested, and the aquatic staff. Last year, there was an aquatics director, and now we've shifted that to have another lifeguard, and the aquatics is enveloped over the director, the summer
Sure.
director position.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, did I hear you correctly that you said there was no wait list for positions in 2023 for the day camps?
No, there wasn't.
Okay. The other question, so you had 7 weeks of programming last summer, and you did say that at one week you had 41 in 1 week, so can you, and that was your capacity?
My understanding capacity was 38 participants,
Okay,
and
so-
there were 2 weeks that they were full at capacity,
And the rest of the time there was,
between 32 participants.
okay, 30 to 32, and that was 2 weeks. All right, thank you very much. Councillor Zabian.
Just one more question, Mayor Snow, if I may. In your months there, when you guys were deliberating what to do, did you reach out to any other units to see what they were doing? Because I took the weekend and I went and looked up Annapolis Royal and West Hants, and they actually did the reverse of what we did. They beefed up their programming, their camps. They beefed them up, and I think West Hants was the most remarkable one. They're going to charge $35 to West Hants citizens for the week-long camp, which I thought was amazing that they could subsidize that and do that for their citizens. And I'm not asking anyone to do that, but I'm just wondering, did you do that? Was that part of, because I guess, and I appreciate your honesty and everything you provided, but what I'm struggling with is that these camps have been 40 years at least in Kentville, and what's changed now in the last 2 years that we can't do them? Because kids haven't changed. Now, from what I went on West Hants, and I didn't go to all of them, if you bring in a professional to help with some of these children, that's great. I don't think that they all do that. They probably give a warning. I know West Hants had a warning on their website. You know, we can't tend to all these matters, and that's up to the parent whether they want to send a child. I'm just wondering what changed all of a sudden. Our facilities are pretty much the same. We haven't lost any that I know of. What's changed? I guess that's what I'm trying to understand. If we lost a building or we lost something, I could probably sit here and understand a little more. I'm not understanding what changed because we had less people downstairs running these programs for decades. And that's what's not coming into my head. Thank you.
I can't speak to the standards of programming 40 years ago, and I would argue that there were probably safety concerns then. And I think we are seeing a dramatic change in our community, and I think post-COVID, a very dramatic change in our children and their capacity. I think you have to look no further than what's happening in AVRCE and the challenges that teachers, being the most highly trained, are bringing forward with regards to violence and the situations they're dealing with schools. And so putting leadership in those situations, I feel is irresponsible. I would argue a lot has changed over the last several years. And in reference to my experience in camps, there is a constant conversation about how to pivot and how to do better and how to restructure. And I don't think anyone in a department is saying that this is the end of. This is a reality of the situation we have been dealing with and trying to make adjustments, and our current capacities are as such, and we're doing our best to then shift our priorities and shift our intention to focus on full community until we can, potentially with the support of council and help of the community, find a more sustainable model and find a place for our kids to really flourish through these 2 months.
I guess I'll just end it with this. My comment really should have been, what was wrong with the model that we've had? That's what I'm not understanding. It's worked. And I mean, I've been here for 12 years now, and some of you have been here a lot longer. Councillor Maxwell and Councillor York was raised here, Councillor Gerard. I'm just wondering what was wrong with our model, and if there was a problem with it, why didn't we look at another model rather than just toss them aside? And I know you probably can't answer that question now, but that's still what I'm struggling with. I know I'm being a little repetitive, but that's what I'm saying.
Well, I
we had
think
a
there
model,
was an
yeah.
attempt last year to really shift the model and look into community for more support and sustainability that was directed and had capacity to manage those needs. And then hence, since that time, there is no longer that capacity. So we're at a reevaluation of the best way to move forward with this, in these opportunities based on the resources that we have.
Thank you.
Councillor Maxwell.
Yeah, just one more question. The ECEs, would they be certified, or would they be people that are just taking the course, or like, are they student ECEs, or are they fully qualified ECEs? And what would be the approximate age of those people?
We had 2 level 1s last year, and one was going for the level 2.
Okay, I'm not familiar with
they were
the.
certified?
They were certified and
Yeah.
trained.
They were certified and trained?
Yeah.
Okay, and approximate age would be what, 20,
They're in their 30s.
30s?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good, thank you.
All right, thank you very much for your presentation. All right, and as per our changes with regards to the agenda, we do have an RFD, and I will open the mic for Councillor Zabian to bring this to the floor. Councillor Zabian.
Thank you, Mayor Snow, and forgive me, I have a nasty cough, so I may break with a cough here and there. So I'm going to touch on this change to the summer camps. This is what my RFD is about. And I'll start off just by saying that the town of Kentville has hosted summer day camps for decades. And I know from people I've asked, they go back at least 40 years. I don't know when they started. It was a great opportunity for children to experience these camps. And at the same time, many students have had summer jobs. And Kentville is a town we know has always been praised for their recreation department. That's a fact. On May 1st of 2024, council was informed via a memo that the recreation department had made the decision to cancel the summer camp program. And the reasons were as follows. Number 1, hiring trained summer staff. 2, staff burnout. 3, location and infrastructure. 4, training and management staff. And 5, program registration and payment management. So, and we know historically that the town has always applied for grant funding, which went towards the costs of the summer staff. And at this time of the year, students are always looking for summer jobs. And I know historically as well that oftentimes many of the same students return the next year to work again. And I mentioned this a few minutes ago, what I'm concerned the most is that we have a larger complement in our rec department this year compared to the other years, but yet we seem to be offering less. The budget for 2023, 24 operational budget, we saw an increase of $348,800 in the rec budget, and $220,400 was that alone for rec administration. So the staff increase saw an increase of 40%, and this item increased from $546,000 to $766,000, which is where you get your $220,000 increase. So that's a huge amount. Again, this has nothing to do with the staff. We've gotten a beautiful bio on all their roles and all the great things they do, but when we had a much smaller complement in this department, They were planning the camps, they were managing the camps, they were hiring for employment, they were collecting payment, and that went on for decades. And as far as I can remember, and I'll stand corrected, there was maybe 3 downstairs at most in that area. And I'll be the first to apologize if I'm wrong. My other thing is the location of the camps. There was a comment made that the recreation hub does not have cooling, and as I said moments ago, that I can vouch for everybody around this horseshoe that I'm pretty sure council would have stepped in and we would have remedied that with a floor air conditioner. We would have done whatever we had to, rather than toss this program aside for a new model. And the other thing is the distance, because there was a mention that I believe stated that using the rec center and town hall was too far away, or it was a distance issue. I have a problem with that too, because I know when I sent my kids in the past, they had walked from KCA, from the rec hub, all the way to Miners Marsh a couple times. And that's a pretty long walk. So we have this new active transportation route now on Station Lane. I don't understand why we wouldn't be using it. Great opportunity to use it and educate the kids. My last comment is going to be about the cost to run these camps. The town of Kentville has always subsidized these programs because it was in the best interest of the community. Summer camps have been a long tradition offered to families in the town of Kentville. And just to note, I don't believe, and if I'm mistaken again, I'll stand corrected, but I don't believe there was a decrease in desire for these camps. In fact, year over year, we had waiting lists. To me, it's a valued service we provide young working families knowing their children will have a very active summer versus them hunting for babysitters and leaving these kids bored in the summer sitting in front of video games. It wasn't a free service, families paid for it, and the many summer jobs that our students got. It was a win-win, and when I look at our neighboring villages and towns and counties are still doing them and many of them beefing them up, I can't understand why Kentville, a town that has prided itself on recreation, would not want to continue to offer the same, if not better. That's our standard. So I'm going to ask council tonight if we can find a way to work with staff to reinstate these summer camps this year. And I would make a motion to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation of the RFD, Councillor. So we do have a recommendation based on that, and our motion would be that CAC recommend to council to make past practice day camps a priority of council at the May 27th meeting of council. Are you?
I thought you made the move.
Okay. I was looking at Councillor Zabian because it is his RFD. So thank you for that, Councillor Zabian. And for the second, Councillor York, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that CAC recommend to council to make past practice day camps a priority of council at the May 27th meeting of council. The floor is now open for discussion. Councillor Zabian.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. I just have one question for council. Is that gonna, if in fact council decides this is the route that they want to go, is that gonna give staff enough time? Because that's the end of May, so thank you.
CAO.
So through you, your worship, and we did slightly amend the motion. Council sets priorities, and administration has a responsibility to make sure that they're working in alignment with council. That was why the wording of the motion was the way it was. If council makes this a priority, then administration will make every effort to bring the camps forward for the upcoming year. I would say as CAO that I do support the recommendation of recreation on this topic.
Thank you.
Thank you, CAO.
Thank you, CAO. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to make a couple of points around this. And I think I said this initially, that I really think community engagement is key when we're making material change like this. When we engage our community, we certainly learn more and we have the opportunity to be even more innovative. This obviously is community program versus summer camps. And while I understand where the new model took time and planning to come up with, we are a traditional community, and I think that the need is there for camps. So I'd almost like to see a combination thereof. I don't know how that would work. I don't know if the motion is flexible enough for that, but that would be something that would have to be left to the CAO and staff, I suppose. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maxwell, did you want to add anything, CAO?
So, through you, your worship, if council deems camps to be a priority, then we would make camps the priority, and we would still work around for whatever else could be added to, but camps would be the priority as established.
Thanks, CAO. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I certainly understand the desire for camps, but being a physical educator and understanding the importance of physical activity and recreational activity and getting outside in nature for students and children, I'll call them students just because that's what I'm used to, I have to lean towards maximizing participation, getting as many of our young people out doing activities in the summer as possible. And if I'm looking at a maximum enrollment of 38 at a camp and then cutting in half or maybe by more the number of participants in the program that is there now, we're really doing a disservice to our young people. And we're leaving a lot more sitting home in front of video screens by doing that. Staff burnout is a reality. And I keep very close attention on what's going on in schools. And teachers are overwhelmed with discipline issues in school. I can't imagine, as a physical educator, working from 8 to 4 with the same group of kids nonstop all day long and dealing with behavioral issues. And don't think for a minute that there won't be behavioral issues, because there are. And I couldn't do that job. I wouldn't do that job. There's no way that I would do that job. In school, teachers get breaks, they get recess, they get lunch, they get a changeover of children that they're seeing. They get a period off for planning in the higher levels. It's not little kids. I mean, these are young people, these are preteens and teens that are going to be dealt with by staff. And I can understand totally why ECEs would be packing it in after 1 month. I don't think it would take me more a month before I would pack it in. That's a reality of today. And I think sometimes we need to think about others, especially in the workplace, and what loads we're asking them to carry. We should be, in my professional opinion, we should be maximizing participation. That's what is being asked of us by Participation Canada and every health department in the country, that we need to get our kids outdoors in nature to be active. And I know that tradition speaks loudly, but sometimes you have to recognize that not everything stays at the same level all the time. That society progresses, demands on people progress. And I think it's very, it's very important. How would I deal with this as a working parent? I would enroll my child in as many of those activities as I could, and I would hire, I don't like to call them babysitters for teenagers, but I would hire a student, and if that was cost prohibitive for me, maybe I would get together with people in my community, and maybe 2 or 3 families could hire 2 or 3 different students and look after the days in between that I don't have scheduled programming, and take some of the load off even those people. So I'm going to ask council to think about maximizing participation and exactly what you're asking from people who are running day camps. Would you do that job? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor York.
Thank you. I would be curious to know, because we're talking about camps and drop-in programs, and they are different. Drop-in programming often has an adult with the child, which means there is no capped participation because there is no ratio requirement. So when we look at the numbers for drop-in programming, it's not that they're inflated, it's just a different type of number. So when we do have ratios in place, the 1 to 10 or 1 to 12, I'm not sure what the AVRCE is, so I'm not sure what early childhood educators would be mandated to do within the school system. But if we do use the 1 to 10 ratio, if we want to have more participation, we take those 4 leaders, we take those 5 outreach workers, whatever it is, we can increase the amount of people working to increase the ratio number. My concern with the drop-in program in the middle of the day is that it requires somebody to be able to come and get you at that end time. That is not a feasible option for a lot of folks. Camp is $125 a week, or it's in and around the $125 mark. I would be curious to know what the numbers were for registration prior to last year. I know certainly when I was a teacher and when I was teaching, there are classroom management issues, 100%. I don't think anybody around the room is saying that that is not the reality. The reality with camps, and the nice benefit of a camp, which makes it different from school, is that you can have a 3 strikes you're out rule, which I'm sure most days a teacher would like to have a 3 strikes you're out rule, and it's just not available to them for various reasons. Additionally, I would like to know what the numbers were like prior to last year. And I recognize that COVID threw a wrench into things, but in the height of bookings capabilities of registering for camp, what were the weekly numbers like? What were our ratios like? And what does that look like for our summer camps?
I have those answers for you.
Oh, how convenient.
Yes.
Thank you.
In summer 2022, we had max registration at 40. The highest we got was 39, and the lowest we had was 30. In 2021, we had numbers down to between 30 and 32.
2021, so was that still around some of the COVID restrictions as well?
I cannot speak to that. I just pulled the registration numbers for you.
Okay,
Yep.
I appreciate the
Yep.
registration numbers.
Yep.
I think they do require a little bit of context as we look.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
Yeah,
I
no problem.
appreciate that. That was really good.
Councillor Sapien.
Thank you. This will be my last time speaking. Just to the point about enrollment, for what the number was given for these new programs, what it may look like. These are just estimations. It's a brand new program. So, I mean, we can say that 100 kids may go. We don't know if 5 are gonna go. We have nothing to fall back on to look at that. You hope 100 are gonna go or 50 are gonna go. We know that historically there's been waiting lists to get on these camps, and I know that for a fact, in the 12 years I've been here. And the other thing, I just wanna remind everyone that I understand there are struggles now in schools and with children everywhere, not just in Kentville, it's everywhere in the world. Our children in Kentville deserve these programs just as much as they do in West Hants and Kings County, and they all have them. So why would we be any different and not offer the same service? Thank you.
Councillor Huntley.
Thank you. This is a hard one. I'm torn. I love both. And I know there's a lot of work that has gone into this with the Parks and Rec. But a couple of things stand out in my mind. And somebody said it around the horseshoe here tonight, the demands on people. Yep, it has gotten more, and hopefully we're looked at as to help them. But the one thing that stands out in my mind that I love about day camps is that it gives the diversity, equity, and inclusion. There's no division. Everybody's on the same page, and they respect each other when they're playing. And I'm hoping, and I'm pretty sure this is what's happening, that when you see the kids walking the street and they're all holding hands and the cars are stopping and they're going, oh my God, that's so cute. Look how much they're getting along and they're doing whatever. I think it creates the bond of the children to have day camps, and that's all I'm going to say.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
More comment to make, and through the chair to the CAO, and I know CAO that the motion is created in such a way that council sets priority and that every effort will be made with regards to the summer camps. But when I talk about a combination somewhat thereof, I would hope that efforts will be made in that regard as well, in combination.
So administration will make every effort to provide the highest quality of programming for the summer. If council sets day camps as a priority, that will be first, but we're not going to short-circuit any opportunities. It won't be near as comprehensive as to what administration is
I
recommending.
understand, yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Council. Councillor Maxwell, I'm going to take this opportunity to provide my comments as well. So the first thing that I'm going to say is that we are way out of our lane here. Our job is to make budgets and to provide high-level support to the services that the town of Kentville provides. Recreation, our job is to provide and facilitate, their job is to provide and facilitate quality leisure services for citizens of all ages in the town and provide the widest possible variety of constructive leisure pursuits, including a pool, an arena, parks, trails, passive recreation facilities, provides for cultural facilities such as libraries, museums, along with the mandatory transfer to the regional library. So that is our high-level job, and every year we set this when we set our budget. And what we do is we basically, in those high-level statements, give that department our marching orders. And right now, what we're doing is we are getting down into programming. This is not our lane. I guess we've heard all sides of it, and we realize that there is an emotion to this. And are we making decisions based on emotion, or are we making them on the facts that we have been presented by our staff, who, by all accounts, are highly organized and highly qualified to provide us with this information. So I'm just going to ask you to make those considerations when you're voting. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I'll echo a lot of what the mayor has said here. 3 strikes you're out sounds good, but very difficult to do. You could lose in a week. You could lose half the people in your camp. I mean, if you've never been in a situation where you've got to deal with that number of students, kids, you get no idea what it's like. It is mentally and physically draining. You have to be on every second because kids are fast. They move fast, they think fast, they're sneaky, and if you're not on, if you're tired, you're gonna miss stuff and open up to liabilities here. I think that we have to appreciate staff burnout in those types of situations is a real thing. If you don't think things change, you just need to walk down to the swimming pool and look at the programming that was when you were a little kid and you were learning how to swim, and the type of programming that was offered at that time, and now go and see what type of programming is offered now. It's completely different. It has changed multiple times through the decades in what is required and the different levels and things like that. Things have to change. They can't stay the same all the time. And like I said, it might sound nice, oh, good kids are gonna go to camp and they're gonna have so much fun. But really, you know, after a couple of weeks, that starts to wear off, that fun. I've seen it, it starts to wear off. And then it becomes, what can we get into? What can we do? What can we do now? We don't like that, we don't like that leader, let's go after them, let's do. Believe me, it happens. And you might not like to think about it or not. Let's look at the size of the town of Kentville. Councillor Zabian said, you know, his children walked from the rec hub all the way to Miners Marsh. Well, that covers a great deal of the town. Why do the kids have to be dropped off in town and picked up? Why can't they use the active transportation and ride home or walk home? That's what it's there for. Parents shouldn't have to drop them off and pick them up. That's, you know, unless they're underage, then they could be in daycare, probably. So, you know, I'm just thinking, and I'm coming from, you know, and I know people disagree with me, but I'm coming from a background of knowledge. And what I would like to see, and I can appreciate very much the argument for camps, but I want maximum participation. I want as many kids in our community to be out and to be active in programming as we can. And there are ways that that can be done, and we're faced with one right here, and there are ways that parents can help, and they can get their childcare to fill in the gaps, and they can share that childcare with their neighbors or their friends. But I think things do need to change, and I'm sorry that, you know, I have to go against the grain here, but my background in physical activity and participation will not let me do otherwise. And also knowing what goes on in these types of situations and staff burnout. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, council, we have a motion that has been discussed. Question, are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to recommend approval to council to make past practice day camps a priority of council at the May 27th meeting of council. We could be on that beach. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. All right, council, I realize we've been at this for a couple of hours, but we just have a couple of staff reports, and as soon as our last staff report is in, after the CAO's report, we'll take a biological break. So our next report is with regards to the chief's report, and Councillor York, you will present on behalf of the chief and the police commission in your role as the chair.
Present is a very generous term for what I'm about to do. The chief's report from March is in our meeting package, which is available online. There are a couple of things of note. The first would be calls of service have increased to 314 over 228 from March and February, and that the foot patrol hours are still sitting around 125. We are happy as a commission when that number is 100 or above, and for just for general knowledge, 120 hours works out to being slightly more than 3 full-time work weeks of having somebody walk around that center block. So that is a significant amount of hours. I can't talk about operations, and so that's the end of that report.
All right, thank you very much. Does any member of council have any questions for Police Commission Chair York? All right, you got off easy.
Thank you.
Okay, our next report is Director Bell with regards to engineering public works. Sorry,
Thank you, Mayor Snow. I'll start my report, as I usually do, with the Kentville Water Commission. There were no direct operational issues with the Water Commission in April. The Water Commission and Source Water Protection Advisory Group quarterly and special Water Commission budget meeting has been rescheduled to June 5th, once the town's operating budget has been ideally approved. Under sanitary sewer area service, the municipality of Kings closed tenders on Thursday, May 9th, last week, for the replacement of the force main from the Justice Center parking lot through to Klondike Street and along the Harvest Moon Trail to Eves Hollow. This is where, most of you know, we had numerous breaks last fall, which occurred, closing the trail and negatively impacting the environment. Funding that was jointly applied for by the three municipal partners was announced at the end of April for up to 50% or a maximum of $3.1 million. At the time of this report, the results of the tender were not available, but since then the County of Kings closed tenders late last week and the project came in under budget. So based on that, we expect the project to move forward this construction season, and we will share a project schedule as soon as one is available, particularly with certainly the residents in that area that will be impacted along Klondike Street, but certainly everyone else as well that uses the Harvest Moon Trail, because there will be closures throughout that project to make the work site safe. Operationally, there were no direct operational issues with the Kentville sanitary sewer service in April. Under Public Works, the crew are entering the spring maintenance season, which includes road and sidewalk repair, as it always does this time of year, as well as road painting, catch basin maintenance and repair, and working with contractors on various capital works projects. You'll see patch paving has begun. The focus at the first part of this year seems to be up on the north side of town, on Bridge Street, up towards the town boundary that was in need. Much of the downtown is in pretty good condition, but they certainly are going to be back this week, most likely, and next, as we ramp up for Apple Blossom prior to the sort of the paint truck coming through town to do the refresh like it always does prior to Apple Blossom. Under projects, the downtown sidewalk replacement portion of the overall AT project got underway last week and is progressing nicely. It started over on the west end of Webster Street on that south side, working around the corner. Several other projects will be tendered in the coming days, included in the capital investment plan. Our engineering and planning department are currently working on improvements to the safety and beautification components of the Webster Street bike lane before it is completely reactivated for this season. And those are the highlights of my report for May.
All right, thank you very much, Director, and we do have some questions. Councillor Zabia.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. Thanks, Director Bell. What do you have? What the plans are for the Webster Street bike lane this year? Are they going to put those same bollards up, or do you have a different?
It's a different system. They will be reutilized because they work well, but they're going to be used in conjunction with beautification. We've been working with my engineering junior engineer, I guess, project engineer, and the planning department to look at ideally what we planned the year before was they couldn't deliver on time, which is a planter system to have some beautification components in that hatched laneway. They would be, of course, removable for the winter season, but they would kind of be every other. It would be a large planter, self-watering planter that would have some low maintenance plants and grasses in them, and then a bollard repeating, or a delineator, I guess is the right word. So those have been identified, and we're making sure that fits the budget line of the overall project, but that's the intention for the bike lane.
I just worry because I noticed the last couple of weeks a lot of close call accidents coming off River Street as they come back in, and some people are driving in that bike lane too.
I have witnessed that myself.
Yeah, or they drive in the middle of it. My other question, and I don't know if this goes to you, maybe it goes back to the CEO. I always get confused with trees. and who, I know you and I had discussed this last week, but some of those trees downtown are overgrown now, and I don't know, I don't think they've been cut in years. Specifically the ones on Webster across from me, some of them are quite high, and some of them are ugly too, but some of them are really tall, and they should be groomed, and I don't know, is that?
It's shade tree, it does fall
Yeah.
under the planning department.
Yeah.
I deal quite closely with a particular arborist that we use a few, but one in particular that does some of our, I'll call them more problem trees that are dead or dying or need to, become a liability for traffic or
Yeah.
pedestrian safety along anywhere of the,
Yeah.
throughout town.
I don't know if they're dying, I see them like touching buildings and
You're talking
across
more
the street.
on the north side of Webster.
Yeah,
on
I
the-
noticed some of those are quite large, and they're.
We can have
Yeah,
our
I
arborist.
just-
I respect the opinion of our arborist. He knows his trees and knows the health and
Yeah.
what to do. So we'll have them look at that.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. So obviously, I'm just looking at my notes here from our last regional sewer, and I think the project budget was 6.2 million, of which the 3.1 is the MCGP grant. So the total project came in that low under budget.
Did you hear the final result? What I was told, the tender price, and it wasn't, I hadn't heard of any variance or that was subject to, I think, some checks and balances on the tenders, but I had heard 2.8. It was a public tender, so it certainly can be released. 2.8 million, which is, obviously a fraction of
Wow.
the estimate. I was a little shocked. I was shocked by the original estimate anyway. That is a huge amount of money for the
Yes.
portion. This would be the, I guess, fourth and final phase of that replacement.
Yes.
I mean, certainly costs have gone up over the last 15 plus years since the first phase started, and it started, in multiple phases, sort of working from the plant in New Minas back towards Kentville.
Right.
The last phase finishing in, I believe it was 2015, essentially at the town line of Village of New Minas town line. So yeah, when I heard 6.2, I said, well, yeah, there are some. They did leave the most difficult crossing, or replacement, I should say, to the last phase. Which includes, crossing under Millbrook. So you're into some directional drilling and things that aren't conventional in that sense. And there's some wetlands there that the consultant is also, is having to delineate, and that may also impact how the work can be done, whether it can be done conventionally by excavator or by directional drilling. So, there probably are some contingencies in that 2.8. That could see it go north of 3. But, when we have 50% funding, we don't want to spend money for the sake of spending money. But we got 3.1, or the three municipal partners were successful in a $3.1 million, up to $3.1 million, or 50% of the whole project. So, they're going to make sure that, it's done the most efficiently, way that it can be done. But they also want to make sure that they're prepared for future growth of the Kentville, Colebrook area that uses that force main that goes from RG5 behind the Justice Center to New Minas. So they'll make sure that, is there an option for a small upgrade to go from 20-inch to 22-inch diameter to greatly increase the capacity of that pipe, or even rehabilitate the existing pipe that's in the ground as a secondary. Rather than remove it, they would still put the new pipe in, but look at a lining procedure to keep that pipe in use, or for future use, or as a spare pipe to essentially twin it. So we don't know I don't know any of those answers at this point in time, where the final price will end up, but as tendered, it closed at 2.8, which is.
So let's say it's north of 3, under that MCGP grant, we only get.
50%
It's 50 on, okay.
$50.
Yeah, that's the part.
So if we
that-
spend 3, we'll get 1.5.
1.5, okay.
Spend 4, we'll get 2.
That's why the full amount was put in there before, because they thought it was the 6.2.
The 6.2 was the estimate that was received, and,
Okay.
coming from that as my previous career, engineers want to be conservative, but that seemed high from the get-go with me, but they maybe were looking at city prices and digging in rock. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know why it was so high, but
Nope, that's great.
it is what it is, and
That's good,
maybe
though.
just that, and I didn't hear also that I know they had 3 local bids from 3 valley contractors, which was good to see. All bids were local and in the valley, and I don't know if the 2.8 maybe it left $2 million on the table. I didn't hear what the second price was, so
Right.
maybe it was 2.8 and the next two were over 5.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know the answer to that at this point in time.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Counselor Maxwell.
Yes, thank you. The interruption along the Harvest Moon Trailway there, could we make sure that that goes on the Harvest Moon Trailway website? Maybe-
Harvest Moon Trailway and comms in general, we'll make sure it's on our, our own
Yeah, because we're
website
gonna
and
have
socials and-
people
Yep, yeah.
looking at that website to plan
Sure.
trips coming
Okay.
through.
I'll
So
make
they
note of
should
that.
know when those sections are closed.
Okay,
Okay. Director Langer should be able to direct you to that.
I will seek their
And-
help.
And the bollards, I'm just wondering if we're not using them along Webster Street there, is there any thought to putting them along Belcher Street? Because that is a very busy street and that AT lane is quite small. And to bring children down there without any division between traffic and the bike coming down is
It does vary in width. and
Scary
throughout-
for some
throughout
parents.
places.
yeah.
It's not that we do intend to repurpose them or reinstall them on Webster, just in conjunction with other means, which at this point in time is intended to be sort of a beautification part of the project with planters and things, but also to help delineate that, to really make that lane more divided and stand out more clearly from the
Okay.
traffic, so folks just don't start driving down there in a vehicle to see how many bollards they can knock. They don't
Yeah.
knock over, but they spring back up, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to hit one in one of my cars or a car, because I know it would do damage. But
Maybe for the future, certainly, I think it would be prudent to put something on Belcher Street to divide those bikes from that traffic.
I know there was look at in the overall AT plan, the travel lane itself on Belcher in many cases is considerably wider than it needs to be, which would, if and not that everybody necessarily follows the white and yellow lines, but to narrow up the travel way and widen out the bike lane.
The bike lane needs to be larger.
Was part of the
It
intention.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Welcome.
All right, are there any further questions for the director? All right, Director, thank you very much.
Thank you.
CEO?
Thank you, Your Worship, and members of council. You would have my administration and operations CAC report. A lot of what was discussed by the other directors, I would have been part of those discussions and part of those meetings, and some of it that's even in here is repetitive. I am on the team that has prepared the interview questions and is interviewing for the Director of Planning, as touched on by Dave. Along with Director Matthews, I did attend a meeting with the Kentville Volunteer Fire Department to talk about financial services contract. There was a CAO workshop on 2 of the IMSAs, King's Transit and Valley Waste. It was an afternoon workshop. I participated in that. Attended the Department of Emergency Management meeting, RE, the Nova Scotia Guard, and what it is. And I also attended virtually the session with Search and Rescue in the evening. I also took Remo Incident Command System 200. I had received it, and I'm probably around 2016, but if you're not using it, 8 years is a long time to go without a refresher, so I took it as a refresher course. And I, as always, met with various community stakeholders and municipal partners regarding a number of different items. As it relates to council, last meeting, we did approve second reading of the transfer tax, and there's a couple of policies and some information sharing with Service Nova Scotia. Attended various committee meetings during the month and worked with the leadership team and Director of Finance to move the operating budget forward. As Director Matthews indicated, we're hopeful to have it to council for a first view before the end of May. Happy to answer any questions council may have. It is now public information that we were successful in grant for under the Community Climate Capacity Grant for staffing for 3 years to assist with some of our greening initiatives, and also I think to work as well on some programs for stormwater management on residential properties, so.
All right, thank you very much, CAO, and we do have some questions. Councillor Huntley.
Thank you. Sorry. I'm wondering if you can just touch a little bit about the pace and where we are with updates.
I can. I've asked Alicia to take a wider capacity in what she looks at than just housing, and this is one of the areas. She's reviewed it. She's met with Director Matthews, myself, and the Deputy Clerk as well, and an initial review. We do have some concerns that we have to look at. Interest rates have changed significantly since then, and is this a cost-effective program? And also, there's other service providers that are available. As we understand it right now, we have a $12,000 sunk cost, but we need to do the research and better understand what's out there and what are the needs of our community, and does pay still make sense? It may well, but it is a pivot point, and I did ask Alicia to take that on as one of her projects, to be able to do the research. One of the challenges in the last few years, I believe, with PACE is it always sat on the side of somebody's desk. There was never given the resources to properly see it through. So,
Thank you.
Councillor Zabian.
Thank you. CAO, do you know how long before we get a report back on that roughly? I only say that because we've paid for this application with PACE 2 or 3 times now, right? And we've seen no return from it. West Hants is flying with it, and we cost shared the application with them. It just would be nice to know, because I forget what our cost was, 15,000 or something we paid as a town just to apply, and it looks like if we're not gonna go forward with it, it'd be nice to know. I don't know how long you think you're gonna have some information back from Alicia.
It is my hope that we have something back for the next CAC meeting. If it isn't back for that one, it will certainly be back for the July one.
Okay.
And again, it is just before we restart to make sure that this still makes the most sense
Right.
for our municipality.
Absolutely.
And where we're going with our programming.
Okay, thank you.
No further questions for the CAOs? All right then. That is the end of our staff reports. So staff, thank you very much for your presentations, and they are now part of the record. And thank you for your reports and your attendance. And if there's no objections, we will take a 10-minute break until 8:30, please. Thank you. All right, moving on to our next agenda. We have business arising from the minutes of the April 8th CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. And if we remember at the last council meeting, there was a discussion around council conference travel, and there was additional follow-up requested for this meeting. The mayor wasn't at that meeting, and in discussions with her where this is dealing specifically with council conference and travel, we agreed that the presentation would better be provided by the mayor than administration on that. So thank you.
All right, CAO, thank you very much. Council, I've put together some thoughts based on the conference last week in Bedeque, the NSFM, FCM, and the results. I'll start by saying that at the FCM 2023 in Toronto, our President Mayor Scott Pierce of the Township of Gore, Quebec, addressed the audience of over 3,000 members, clearly articulating that we were there because we have our communities at heart. We're real people building communities. We do not divide our citizens, we unite them. Let what we learn here inspire our work for our residents. And the FCM represents 90% of all Canadians. There are some municipalities that are not members of it. However, Kentville is a member of the FCM. And more than half of the conference delegates came from small, so that's less than 10,000 population, or rural municipalities. To make good decisions, we need good information, and we need that information to be timely and to come from a variety of sources. This year, I can proudly say that Deputy Mayor Jeff Stewart of Colchester County, Nova Scotia, will take over as president of the FCM. And it's not that many years ago that it was actually a councillor from Halifax who was also the president of the FCM. So elected officials in Nova Scotia pull more than their weight on these big committees. In 2016, the Nova Scotia government made the decisive decision to help citizens considering running in municipal elections by engaging the Springtide Collective to provide training in the form of campaign school. That work and those sessions remain relevant today and are available on the internet and on the Town of Kentville website. The Department of Municipal Affairs, the municipality of the municipalities, the Union of Nova Scotia Municipalities, formerly UNSFM, and the Association of Municipal Advisors of AMENS also provided training opportunities for elected officials. The Nova Scotia government identified that changing environment of municipal government, clearly stating that municipalities were dealing with an increasingly complex set of issues from economic development and aging populations to climate change and aging infrastructure. They made important decisions affecting the daily lives and future health and sustainability of communities. Additionally, there were numerous practices that warranted further discussion. For example, the use of expense accounts and public funds for hospitality parties, alcohol and golf memberships, and wrangling gift cards for payment of favors in council. The provincial government further established that accountability and transparency needed to be guiding principles for all municipalities and established the Joint Municipal Accountability and Transparency Committee. The JMAT committee was given a very clear mandate and a time frame to provide input to government, resulting in clear regulations and policies on expense accounts, the purchase of alcohol, hosting, and the transparency and publication of expenses. You might ask, why is any of this important today? What it led to was clear policies on training, conference attendance, and expenses. The town of Kentville led the way on establishing and operationalizing the mandated policies. Since 2016, all travel, training, conference attendance, and council expenses have been conducted within policy and with the utmost of transparency and accountability. The town of Kentville councillors have participated in the NSFM, FCM, Nova Scotia Planning, Asset Management, Nova Scotia Police Association, and Michelin City conferences since 2016, ensuring professional development and bringing a wealth of knowledge, process, ideas, and innovation into our decision-making. As the Nova Scotia government identified in 2016, and again Now, leading up to the 2024 election, municipal elected officials deal with a growing number of complex issues, and they continue to mount. It's not good enough to fall off the turnip truck and mail in our decisions. We need to be cognizant of the effect of our decision-making on our region, our province, and in some cases, the country. Conferences provide us with the access to experts and the ability to meet and collaborate with our peers. We may all face the same issues, but it can be said that from coast to coast to coast, we are often resolving issues in different ways. If a municipal leader can get the details, data, and innovative solutions from another municipality, this collaboration puts us ahead of the curve every time. The demand on municipal leaders continue to grow. Knowing who to call or knowing another municipality that has successfully dealt with an issue is the best of all worlds, because at the end of the day, we can't know everything, and we don't always know what we don't know. And being able to identify that you don't know, but you know who to call, often paves the way to success. Building a cohort of professional council members who have embarked on training in matters that are relevant to the community is important. Decision-making is not easy, nor should it be, but it should not be based on emotion, rather on evidence-based decision-making and the needs of the community. Municipal governments are closest to the people. We provide the services that people need in their everyday lives, from water to sewer, planning, economic development, policing, snow removal, recreation, and at the town level, roads. Additionally, by legislation, a municipal government must have a balanced budget. We cannot run a deficit. If we run out of money before year end, we start the next fiscal by subtracting that deficit from our revenue. We end up with more revenue than expenses. We have the ability to create reserve funds. Municipal finances and accounting are very directed, and training is provided, but it is not mandatory. Conferences provide the opportunity to meet other municipal officials and gain insight from their experience and to collaborate on the issues of the day. Our collective voices are important when issues come before the province and the legislature, as we can speak to committees on behalf of the issues. Our collective voices only come from time on the ground with each other. Relationships are built in an environment where we find our common interest and our shared experience. Municipalities are in the business of supporting the quality of life of residents. The quality of services, recreational facilities, and overall community well-being are a direct result of the decisions that elected municipal officials make as representative of the residents within their communities. Ultimately, the vibrancy and vitality of our community relies on effective elected official leadership. It is therefore critically important that officials stay up to date on all competencies and skills required in their role. Each community has its own unique challenges, but common threads exist. Looking ahead, one of the greatest future challenges for elected officials will be remaining up to date on relevant policies and trends which seem to be changing faster than ever in the era of social media and infinite information available at our fingertips. Community growth and housing are major challenges for elected officials as we attempt to retain community identity and maintain facilities and infrastructure. We've seen the loss of funding when a municipality fails to meet the needs established by other levels of government. To weather these changes, elected officials need to be equipped with skills and knowledge to deliver modernized municipal government process with less cash flow. Education and learning the role of an elected officials have traditionally come largely in the form of putting in time and gaining experience in municipal roles after first becoming elected. Elected officials need to become more skilled and knowledgeable at everything we do. Governance is becoming increasingly complex, and the learning curve is great. A better understanding of the requirements of the role and a solid foundation of knowledge with ongoing continuing education is critical. If we're not constantly learning or bettering ourselves, then we're likely standing still. This is especially true for elected officials and the members of boards of directors, committee members, for that matter, whose job it is to specifically not be an expert on everything. To the very nature of good governance means that municipal council members work on behalf of their stakeholders, their residents, business owners. We are meant to take opinion of the whole and place it through the lens of the organization's vision, mission, and values to make the best decisions for the whole community, not just the most vocal or special interest group. Individual members join council with a particular skill set that may add to the body of knowledge of council, but there remains a need for training, professional development, and peer-to-peer support. We are by no means expected to know everything about everything, but the expectations from our citizens continue to grow. Councils need to approach knowledge expansion intentionally, by necessity. At the same time, most of the expertise and capacity lives within staff. Council must access professional development to make us better in our complete roles as elected officials, not just dependent on specific issues of the day. In the same way that municipalities provide orientation at the beginning of the new election term, focused on good governance, roles, and responsibility, professional development sessions can and should be held throughout a term to increase council's knowledge and skills. Conferences present the perfect opportunity for leaders from communities large and small to grow their skills and learn more about topics that resonate in their own realities. Peer-to-peer collaboration sparks meaningful conversations and showcases innovative solutions for the future of our communities. Professional development can be broad or narrow in scope. These skills should be viewed as valuable to both the council and the municipality. The outcome is the same: increased council knowledge and skills, which translate into increased performance in our roles as elected officials. Professional development sessions and conference attendance do more than help each individual council member develop their own individual skills. They actually strengthen the council as a whole and help council operate with great governance in mind. The town of Kentville has paid memberships in both the NSFM and the FCM, providing our municipality with a vast array of knowledge contained in these organizations and the ability to weigh in on the issues and provide our voice and unique experience to advocate and lobby to make municipal government more effective. Our council members are key members on municipal and organizational boards, at roundtables, committees, and provincial boards, ensuring that municipal perspectives is not only considered in the decision-making, but part of the consultation process. Councillors give freely of their time to be part of this process. And I find it hard to believe that in 2024, I'm lobbying to ensure that elected officials are provided with every opportunity to collaborate peer-to-peer, to attend professional development activities, engage in relevant training opportunities, and continue to lobby and advocate for an equal voice at the table with provincial and federal governments. It is our duty to ensure that our municipalities are vibrant places where our citizens can realize their best life and we need the knowledge to do that. As the NSFM president, Carolyn Bolivar Getson, would say, the world is run by those who show up. And I know there's been a lot of things said about our expenses, and so I as you well know me, drew up a spreadsheet today. And if we look over the 4 years since 2020, this council has, let me back up. I have been budgeted in this 4 years $33,100. I have spent $20,424. The council had a budget of $102,900 and has spent $40,985. That means that we have, in the 4 years since 2020, put $74,589.95 into reserve funds because of money that we didn't spend. Now let me put that into perspective for you, because I talk about 2016, I talk about the JMAT, and I talk about the changes. According to the 2016, so 31 March 2016, so the 15-16 actuals, the mayor spent $21,826 in 1 year. That is more than what I have spent in 4 years. The council of the day spent $36,115. So for a total of $57,941 was the expenses of the mayor and council in 2015-16. Now, I did not extrapolate this money to make it look as it would in 2024 dollars, but I will say that under the current rules and the rules that we have been living by, we have been very good stewards of this money, and we have made decisions that have been good for this town based on the training that we have received. Thank you, CAO, for that.
Thank you, Your Worship.
All right, this was an item on your CAC in May, or no, CAC in April, for which I was not there. So if there's any follow-up, I will open the floor. Councillor Zabia.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. Thanks for that detailed report. I wasn't aware of the 9 years ago or 8 years ago what the previous council spent. I don't mean this negatively. I don't really care what they spent. I look at today's times right now, and when I see one councillor on this council for the last fiscal year spent more than a council of 12 people in West Hands combined, that's what concerns me. I'm not saying that there's no takeaway from conferences. I'm sure that there is, but I think when it comes to our operational budget, which we're going to be presented with in a few weeks, we should really look at that, because it's not 2015 or 2016 anymore. We have a lot of issues that we have to fix here. We've identified those, and I mean, every little bit will help. So that's only my point on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I made a couple of notes on this when I knew it was on the agenda. Most of them you've really already touched on, but I had a point here that it's important to advocate for our taxpayers. And that said, we do need to establish an internal process that's equitable to everyone seated on that council. If we value education and advocacy, then let's create a process. And there are rules on what the municipal tax dollar can cover, to your point. So I think that will be an important point moving forward as we approach the operating budget. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much. Moving right along, we have no correspondence this evening, so we move on to our new business. And you have the regrets in your package, and Mayor Snow and Councillor Huntley have provided regrets for their absence at the June 10th CAC meeting. Due to attendance at the FCM conference, and Deputy Mayor Savage will chair the meeting in accordance with the MGA. All right, and this now opens up for our public comments. So we do ask members of the public, they are invited to speak to council on agenda items, and you will be provided with 3 minutes to speak. And please provide your name, and we say address, but what we mean is Kentville. Thank you. Just give me a sec. I'm just waiting for the alarm to go off. Just because it'll come on the mic if we turn the mic on.
Understood.
Is it off?
Are we good?
All right, please.
Sharon Kehoe, Kentville. The only thing that I would bring up would be the financial director reported, or at least in the reports. I didn't know if you missed it for tonight, but I mean, that's okay. You could do it next. I just would like to have had it detailed as to what it is that the different components were. I could recognize the one on the UARB, or the regulatory part. But it was the rest but it's okay. You can do it even just next month, or at council would be fine.
I'm fine responding. It was an oversight. There was quite a lengthy
I could
discussion
see
on
it.
recreation. I missed it. It was in my report. I think what you're asking for is the breakdown of what goes into each of those categories.
Yes, that's what
So,
I'm
okay, I can provide that to you. Under contracts, it would be labor relations, personnel agreements, development agreements, leases, and CAO recruitment, which is a little bit,
So with respect to the labor, that would be contracts and things like that, like union contracts?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Right.
General governance would be anything that dealt with council meetings, policies, or FOIPOP requests. Labor, personnel matters, sorry, collective bargaining would be under labor, my apologies on that. HR matters, code of conduct issues, or terminations. Legal counsel, retainer for legal counsel, and general opinions or risk management. So if we have to ask a lawyer for an opinion on something, litigation, court preparation, lawsuits, or prosecutions, and then regulatory compliance would be bylaws, the UARB appeals, and appeals related to bylaws in general. So that's sort of the subcategories.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it.
My apologies again, it wasn't,
No,
I had all the material, I just didn't deliver.
Good evening. My name is Marcia McNeil Ayer, I live in Kentville. I just wanted to comment on the day camp situation there. I agree with a few things that were said, and it's kind of a yes and no thing. There's some good points and bad. A couple things I just wanted to point out, like 7:30 to 5:30 is, you're looking at about 10 hours for a student to look after, 6 to 10 kids. And yes, I can see how that would be burnout at times, but have the recreation department thought about having two students, one do the first 5 hours and one do the second 5 hours? And then the next week they can switch, like someone do all days and someone do all nights or whatever. I mean, that might be an option for them to look at. I think that for the working parents in town, just to drop this on them now here in May, and I mean, they're relying on those day camps, it was kind of like, they maybe should have thought about it back, and if they were thinking about it back in February or March, it might have been a good idea at that time to let parents know what was taking place. And a couple of things too, like I don't understand why they can't, my understanding was they used KCA school in the past. I understand that Colebrook School's being used for day camps, Gasbro School's being used for day camps. Have they even approached KCA school? Was that even an option? Do we know? The other thing is, you have the rink over here and it was used some last summer. Well, we have Katy Minor Hockey, Valley Wild Hockey, all the rec leagues can use the rink. The home shows can use the rink. And now the circus, I heard on the radio today, is coming to town, and what are they gonna use? The rink. So if every big, big company can use the rink, why can't 30 kids go into day camp, go in there and just hang out until their parents pick them up or whatever? Those are just a few of the things. Another thing too, like the students that would be working these camps are usually kids that live in town here, and they were relying on those summer jobs. Now you're expecting them to go outside of town and get a job where, as if they were in town here, they could walk to their job or bike down, do the job and go home. And now all of a sudden they gotta get jobs out of town. And it wasn't that long ago that the town of Kentville had a video on their shop local, shop local, shop local. Well, what are we asking the parents and the taxpayers to do is now take your kid to Colebrook or take your kid to Des Moines or Canning or somewhere. I don't think that's shopping local for the tax-paying citizens that are paying for these, these recreation. We're paying for the recreation, and now you expect us to go to town. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. And the other thing is, a lot of the kids that go to day camp were able to use the swimming pool. Not very many people, it's probably 1 in 20 that might have a swimming pool. With the summers being hotter, what a nice relief it was for them to be able to use the swimming pool when they went to day camp, and now they're not even gonna use the pool and get a swim in. So those are just a few of the things that I see. And the other thing too, that there is the soccer dome, the churches, the blue building that we could have put an air conditioning in that they could have used. It was nice and quiet down there. It'd be an easy drop-off spot for parents to drop their kids off. Look, I'll fundraise and buy you an air conditioner if you want me to. Just let me know. But, those are just some of the points that I see about the day camp, and I think that it should be reconsidered and looked at. Thank you.
My name's Gary Randall. I live in Kentville. Good evening, Mayor and councilors, CAO. For a year now, my neighbor Ron Cousins has been stressed over a letter from Kentville's engineer threatening to expropriate his Acadian old-growth forest property to build the Donald Hills Connector Road. I remind you, there has never been a vote by council to do so. That's a year ago he got the letter. I've written letters to council with Ron's consent in regards to his property and never got any written response to date. And maybe that's to be expected. Because it's land, we can't talk about it. I've communicated with some councillors and learned not much more from most of them, other than it is a land issue and can't be discussed. Only one council member has taken up our invitation to join us in the Acadian old-growth forest. Without setting foot on the land, it is impossible to understand all this gem does to protect Kentville. Yet you may be the ones who will decide to save or destroy hundreds of years of nature that has and is protecting us from fire, heat, insects, flooding, etc. And I must mention the CAO did go up with Ron, and I commend him for doing that, to take a first-hand look at the forest. The Blomina Natural Society has written a report to council explaining the tremendous value of Ron's property to the environment and therefore all citizens of our town. This especially emphasizes water retention and erosion, which we all know we could be spending millions on soon to try to repair the damage from past decisions. We had been told on more than one occasion by the town engineer, because we have met with him, that the Donald Hills Connector must go through Ron's land to meet Transportation Association of Canada specs. In a recent meeting with the CAO Lawrence, Ron and I have been told that the road could go past Ron's land and meet those specifications. You can see this in a drawing given to us by our CAO. I have a couple copies here. I think maybe the mayor doesn't have one, and Kathy, Councillor Maxwell doesn't, so if you can give the other one to the mayor, I'd appreciate that. Now the issue seems to be cost, but no one has approached the other property owners, only Ron, even though that land is now for sale. Ron's land isn't for sale. I think we've made that clear on several occasions. I would suggest, without asking landowners, no one knows what the least expensive route is. You might even avoid the negotiator fees, legal fees for expropriation, and a URB appeal. Also, you must factor in Ron's land is of tremendous value for water retention, which is of incalculable value to our citizens, especially those that live in Condon Avenue. They will receive even more water and debris if you bulldoze and pave over Ron's old-growth forest. Even if you paid twice as much not to take Ron's land, you will get all the value Ron's old-growth forest adds to Kentville for free, because he doesn't want it cut down. He doesn't plan on developing it. Imagine acres of Acadian old-growth forest in the middle of our future town of 13,000 citizens. Ron has no kids. As I said before, he's a lifelong bachelor who looked after his mom to age 100 at their home in Kentville. He loves his forest like you love your dog, cat, or child. He has absolutely no desire for financial gain from that property, no intention to sell or develop his old-growth forest. Of the forests in Nova Scotia, less than 1% is old growth, so this property is unique. Ron wants it to be forever a breath of fresh air, and I see that once again behind the mayor. He is the real deal, not just a slogan that has no action or real intent behind it. You must consider an alternative route so everyone gets the benefit of Ron's land forever at zero cost to the town of Kentville. It is a breath of fresh air. In fairness, the town knows who is going to benefit and make money from building this infrastructure that we're paying for. Those are the people who should contribute, not Ron. 4 times Kentville has taken advantage of his property. Where is the fairness in taking a 5th time? Why pick on him? Why must he take his life savings for lawyers to fight his town? Why spend our tax dollars for lawyers? Why create more bitterness? Why?
Wrap it up, please.
Ask those who want to sell, develop, and profit to give a little, and please leave Ron, a lifelong citizen of Kentville, to live in peace and go to his old-growth forest for that breath of fresh air. In the past, he can tell you, a pipeline they built across his property. I think they gave him $200 or $300 for it, right through the middle of his property. No question asked, just did it, right? So that's the way the town's used them. Sorry for being long. Thank you for listening.
My name is Ron Cousins. I just want you to know I don't want to sell my land. I hope you won't take it from me. I've been going up there for over 70 years. And I just don't want to, I'm getting a lot of stress from this and time and money that I don't really, I don't want to deal with any of this, but I have to. But I hope you consider what you're doing before, when you vote on it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bunny Bennett, and I do live on Condon Avenue, so the last speaker's topic really hit home with me. The first thing I want to bring up is the Kentville sidewalks. We all know they're being replaced and overdue for that. I want to tell you something. A friend of mine on May the 1st came out of CIBC Bank. In that area, she tripped and fell. She scraped her nose, gave herself a black eye, broke her glasses, bruised her knees, bruised her hands. My question is this: is there any way, I know these sidewalks are going to take time to replace, can some of the worst places be ground down a bit, or can orange spray paint be put in bad areas to perhaps prevent someone else from going through this? Luckily, her glasses were able to be replaced because they were still under warranty. Otherwise, I said, you should be going after the town because that's dangerous. You have to walk in this town with your head down to prevent yourself from falling. And luckily, she didn't break anything, but if she'd been an older lady, she probably would have. So I'm just wondering if there's anything that can be done to mark the really bad spots while we're getting new sidewalks. The other thing is a pet peeve of mine is behind the Parks and Rec building on the trail, it looks like a junk heap. Our trail everywhere is lovely, but you get to that section and it's just like junk. Everything is just kind of thrown in there. You can't see it from the ballpark. It's concealed. But when you're on that trail, it's very unsightly. It's really an eyesore. And I'm just wondering if they have to put everything there, or what they do have to put there, can it be organized in more neatly so that it's not such an eyesore when you're walking along there? When the trees come into leaf, it's a bit better, but it still is quite an eyesore. And that's our part of our trail, and we should take more pride in it than that. And I'm not the only one that has spoken about that. The only other thing that I want to talk about, and it was not on the topics tonight, and I brought it up before, is the comfort station. Are we ever going to get a comfort station in Center Square area, which is becoming busier all the time? It's just so needed. And like, what is the problem? Like, I don't understand why the idea was there and then all of a sudden the idea was not there. I mean, it's very much needed. And anyway, I would definitely like to see that going. And just a constructive criticism for our new CAO. I know you'll take this well. When you speak forward in your chair, we can hear you much better. But when you're sitting back, it's really hard, and it's not just my old ears. I think other people, and you have a lot of important things to discuss.
I'll try and do better.
Thank you very much,
You're
Jeff.
welcome.
Okay, have a good evening, and thank you.
All right, the Council Advisory Committee has 4 items concerning land and legal which must be conducted in a closed session. We require a motion to go into the closed session to discuss the agenda items. The motion.
I did that last time too.
And a second? Councillor York, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council move into the closed session. The question is on adoption of the motion to move into the closed session. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you. And the time is 9:09.